Chapter 532. Was this the so-called retribution? The policewoman in charge of the interrogation was very sympathetic towards Qing Luochen. After all, she was only a 17-year-old girl and she suddenly encountered such an unfortunate thing. But after knowing the truth, her impression of Qing Luochen fell to the bottom. Even her attitude was clearly cold. As for Qing Luochen's parents, they were completely frightened by their daughter. How could their beautiful, smart, and obedient daughter do such a thing? But no matter what, she was still their only daughter. If that girl called Chang Xian really took revenge after finding out the truth, they couldn't help but seek justice for their daughter. Gu Xingyin was called out by the class teacher during class. There were several uniformed policemen in the office. Gu Xingyin didn't know what to do. The two policemen wanted to maintain their prestige as policemen, but seeing that the other side was such a small, deer-like girl, their faces couldn't help softening. Gu Xingyin's nervous gaze, the policewoman's voice was very gentle. "You are Chang Xian, right? Don't be afraid, we just came to ask you a few questions." Gu Xingyin's class teacher also said, "I know this child Chang Xian very well. She is very pure, she definitely wouldn't do such a thing." Gu Xingyin slowly calmed down and suddenly asked, "You want to ask me about Qing Luochen?" The two policemen looked at each other and it was still the policewoman who spoke. "Can you tell us what happened that day?" Gu Xingyin nodded. "That day after school, I went to find one of my senior sisters. I'm timid and heard my classmates say that Qing Luochen is a petty person who likes to take revenge on others. I was a bit scared and had her follow me for this period of time. Then, we met those hooligans." Big Sister Shirley looked very angry and scolded those hooligans. Then she told them to teach the person who wanted to teach me a lesson. Gu Xingyin said this and her body trembled slightly. "We all thought that she just wanted to beat me up, I never thought that." She couldn't continue, but her eyes were filled with fear. The two policemen looked at Gu Xingyin's haggard face and knew that she must have been scared out of her wits these past few days. That's right, if it weren't for the sudden turn of events that day, these things would have fallen on her. After asking all the questions they wanted to ask, they left the school. Speaking of which, this matter had nothing to do with this girl named Chang Xian. She was, at best, a victim. Qing Luochen reaped what she sowed. The news that Gu Xingyin was called away by the police was quickly spread by the students in the class. The people in the school quickly found out that the second-year school beauty Qing Luochen was completely reaping what she had sown. She originally wanted to deal with Chang Xian, but in the end, she was the one who got retribution. The students who were full of sympathy for Qing Luochen now had looks of disdain when they talked about her. Not only did she steal her boyfriend, she even planned to ruin her. How could there be such a vicious person in this world? Qing Luochen's reputation was completely ruined in the entire Lin City 3rd High School. It was impossible for her to stay in Lin City 3rd High School. Chapter 533. Gu Xingyin specially went to look for Gu Shirley because of this. She was a little uneasy. "The police came to the school to look for me today. Sister Shirley, will we be okay?" Gu Shirley smiled. "Don't worry. This matter has nothing to do with us. Even if it does, I can make it have nothing to do with us." Gu Xingyin actually had some understanding of Gu Shirley's background. With her father's secret power and status, no one in Lin City dared to touch her. Gu Shirley rubbed Gu Xingyin's head. "Don't worry. Your sister Shirley is here. Nothing will happen to him. Look at you. You haven't slept well these days, right? You have dark circles under your eyes." Gu Xingyin smiled helplessly. She did this on purpose. However, she wasn't the only one who was worried. After knowing what happened at school, Mr. and Mrs. Chang were the ones who were the most worried. They didn't know that something so thrilling had happened to their daughter. If she had almost. That girl was going to destroy their Xian. Mr. Chang had work and couldn't leave. Mrs. Chang simply accompanied her daughter to and from school these few days. She really couldn't be at ease. She also learned that the girl in Xuanxuan's school had done this to Xian because of Huang Anyuan. Even though Mr. and Mrs. Chang knew in their hearts that this matter couldn't be blamed on Huang Anyuan, they couldn't help but feel a little angry at him. If Huang Anyuan hadn't provoked her, would this have happened? Mrs. Chang accompanied Gu Xingyin to school for half a month. After much persuasion, Gu Xingyin finally persuaded her not to send her tomorrow. However, after school the next day, Gu Xingyin saw an unexpected person at the school gate. Genius Lu. Gu Xingyin greeted him in surprise. Don't you have class today? Gu Xingyin asked curiously. School had just ended. Although number 1 high school wasn't very far from number 3 high school, it would still take some time to walk there. Under normal circumstances, Lu Yu wouldn't have arrived at number 3 high school's gate at this time. Lu Yu looked at her gently. I'm waiting for you. What he didn't tell her was that ever since he heard about Qing Luo Chen's matter, he had been worried about her. Every day when she went to school, he would personally come over to see her enter the school or be taken away by her parents. Only then would he be at ease. Today, when she didn't see her mother accompanying her to school, he took the initiative to appear at the school gate of the 3rd high school. Gu Xingyin tilted her head. Why are you waiting for me? Do you want me to treat you to a meal? Lu Yu smiled. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten that you still owe me a meal. All right, I'll treat you to dinner today. I'll call my mom first. Gu Xingyin took out her phone. At a time like this, if she did not inform Nanny Chang that she would be home late, Nanny Chang would be worried to death. Sure enough, Mrs. Chang, who received the call, asked a lot of questions. In the end, she was relieved after confirming that she was treating a good friend to a meal and promised that the other party would send her back. Let's go. But today, I may have to trouble you to send me home. Gu Xingyin smiled slyly. All right. Lu Yu looked at her curved eyes and thought to himself, even if you don't say it, I still want to see you get home safely. After dinner, Lu Yu sent Gu Xingyin to the door. I'm here. Genius Lu, goodbye. Gu Xingyin waved at Lu Yu. I'll wait for you here tomorrow morning. Lu Yu said this and didn't wait for Gu Xingyin to react before he turned to leave. Chapter 534. Lu Yu quickened his footsteps to leave so that he could hide the redness in his ears. There was another reason. He was afraid of Gu Xingyin's rejection. What if she did not want to be with him every day? What he did not know was that Gu Xingyin, who was behind him, saw his slightly messy footsteps and burst out laughing. When she returned home, Mrs. Chang, who had been waiting in the living room, quickly came up to her and looked at her daughter carefully. She was relieved when she saw that there was nothing wrong with her. Who is the friend who sent you home today? Mrs. Chang asked curiously. Gu Xingyin replied, I met him when I went to the capital to participate in the physics competition. He is a top student from number 1 middle school. I won the 2nd prize and he won the 1st prize. She thought that Mrs. Chang did not know Lu Yu. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Chang immediately reacted when she heard her words. Is he the one from number 1 middle school called Lu Yu? Gu Xingyin added. Yes, Lu Yu. A smile appeared on Mother Chang's face. This young man is handsome and energetic. Gu Xingyin looked at her and thought that she was quite familiar with Lu Yu. Mom. How do you know him? Mrs. Chang said, didn't he appear on our lynching TV station a few times? At our age, who doesn't know him with children in school? She looked at Gu Xingyin as she said, you are friends with that child? When you're free tomorrow, invite him over for a meal. She did not feel that there was anything wrong with her daughter being friends with a boy. Gu Xingyin could only attribute this to the power of a top student. She nodded. Then I will ask him. The next morning, when Gu Xingyin went to school, she saw Lu Yu standing under a tree not far from the neighborhood. He was wearing a white shirt and had his hands in his trouser pockets. She did not know what he was writing with his head lowered. Gu Xingyin saw a few girls who passed by secretly looking at him. Morning. Gu Xingyin greeted him. Lu Yu turned around and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. Morning. Gu Xingyin stuck her tongue out. I thought you were joking yesterday. I didn't expect you to really come. Lu Yu chuckled and shook his head. He said in a low voice, "Why would I joke with you?" Gu Xingyin did not hear clearly and asked in confusion, "What?" Lu Yu shook his head. Gu Xingyin looked at him and asked, "Have you had breakfast?" Actually, Lu Yu had already eaten. There was an auntie at home who made breakfast. However, when he heard Gu Xingyin's question, he suddenly hesitated and shook his head. Gu Xingyin frowned. "How can you skip breakfast? How about this? I'll tell my mom tomorrow to make more breakfast in the future. I'll bring it to you. Let me tell you, my mom's cooking is very good." Lu Yu listened to the girl beside him chattering all the way. He felt that the whole morning seemed to have brightened up with her lively voice. "Goodbye, top student Lu." Gu Xingyin stopped and said to Lu Yu. They arrived at school. Lu Yu did not say goodbye. He only replied, "See you in the afternoon." Gu Xingyin turned around and walked into the school. She couldn't stop the smile on her face. How could she not have heard what he said? However, she really enjoyed the feeling of being carefully cared for and protected. Chapter 535. Today was destined to not be a peaceful day. After the second class in the morning, Qing Luo Chen's face appeared at the door of the first class. "Chang Xian, come out, I have something to ask you." The whole class quieted down in an instant. Everyone's eyes fell on Qing Luo Chen and Gu Xingyin, who was doing her homework outside the door. Gu Xingyin looked out the window. It was hard to imagine that the person standing outside was the beautiful Qing Luo Chen. Her originally round and glossy face had lost a lot of weight, and her complexion was also incomparably pale. The large coat on her body was empty, and one could see at a glance how thin and weak her body was under the clothes. Of course, no matter how haggard a beauty was, she still had her own charm. It seemed that these days, she didn't have a good time. This was common sense, no matter who it was, they wouldn't have a good time after encountering this kind of thing. The current Qing Luochen was like a lone wolf in a desperate situation, no one knew what she would do. Gu Xingyin didn't plan to let herself be cannon fodder. Under everyone's gaze, Gu Xingyin shook her head at Qing Luo Chen, who was outside the window. This was a rejection. The students of the first class could understand her actions. If it was them, they wouldn't want to see this person for the rest of their lives. Seeing Gu Xingyin completely ignoring her, Qing Luo Chen was a little surprised. She said in a sharp voice, "I know some secrets about Huang Anyuan, don't you want to know?" Gu Xingyin secretly laughed. Qing Luo Chen had no other choice. In order to make her leave, she even said this kind of thing. It was a pity, she secretly laughed. Huang Anyuan's secret, what did it have to do with her? She simply took out a pair of headphones from the desk and stuffed them into her ears, showing her rejection to Qing Luo Chen. Seeing her childish action, many people in the first class couldn't help laughing. A few people who didn't like Qing Luo Chen directly said, Xian doesn't want to talk to you, we're going to class, you should leave." Qing Luo Chen looked at Gu Xingyin with some resentment and left unwillingly. No one thought that this would be the last time they would see Qing Luo Chen. When she woke up from her afternoon nap, Gu Xingyin heard the news of Qing Luo Chen falling off the building. It was said that she jumped from the 6th floor of the school library. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was already dead. In the pocket of Qing Luo Chen's white coat, there was a blood-stained suicide note. The letter was filled with tears of blood. In the end, Qing Luochen used a hateful tone to express that the biggest reason she chose to die was because of Huang Anyuan. Some of Huang Anyuan's classmates said that during lunch, Qing Luochen went to find Huang Anyuan and the two of them had an argument at the end of the corridor. They could faintly hear Huang Anyuan calling her dirty and vicious. After that, no one knew where the two of them went. Huang Anyuan returned to the classroom during lunch break and in less than an hour, the news of Qing Luochen's suicide came out. He used his own death to take revenge on others. Gu Xingyin shook her head. It really was a young life. She would never know that her revenge against Huang Anyuan would only be a nightmare for 1 or 2 months at most. It would be a painful memory of her youth that would be recalled many years later. The ones who were really hurt and engraved in her heart were her parents who raised her for 17 years. The way you hurt yourself, you could only take revenge on the people who cared about you the most. Chapter 536. Gu Xingyin saw Qing Luo Chen's parents from afar. It was a middle-aged couple who were well-dressed. But at this moment, when they heard the news of their daughter's death, there was only panic and pain left on their faces. The teachers in charge of each class strictly forbade the students from discussing this matter, and the library became a forbidden area. Gu Xingyin wasn't in the mood to watch the fun. After school, she immediately saw Lu Yu, who was waiting not far from the school gate. Lu Yu looked at her with a worried expression. "Are you all right?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. "How could anything happen to me?" Lu Yu relaxed. When he heard that something happened in the third school, that a girl had jumped off the building and that girl was Qing Luo Chen, his first reaction was, "I don't know if Xian was scared." It was a good thing that she seemed to be in a good state. If it was any other girl, they would have been scared. Lu Yu's thoughts moved and his hand grabbed Gu Xingyin's hand faster than he thought. Gu Xingyin was startled and looked at him with a bit of surprise. Lu Yu looked over with a faint smile. "I was very worried about you." Gu Xingyin was stunned by this smile and didn't pull her hand back. Lu Yu felt the soft touch in his hand and saw the red ears of the girl beside him from the corner of his eyes. His mood was unprecedentedly clear. "See you tomorrow." When they arrived, Gu Xingyin said in a small voice with a slightly red face. "Goodbye." Lu Yu let go of her hand. Gu Xingyin jogged up the stairs. Lu Yu looked at her and couldn't help revealing a smile. In the days that followed, there was an unspeakable tacit understanding between the two of them. They would go to school together and would go out to play occasionally during the holidays. They would also leave each other a message when something happened. No one said the words that were hidden in their hearts. Gu Xingyin and Lu Yu maintained this kind of relationship of more than friends, but not yet lovers. However, between the two of them, no matter who it was, they had to admit that there was a feeling that no one else could interfere. When Gu Xingyin entered her second year of university, Huang Anyuan transferred schools. On one hand, it was public opinion. Even though the police had confirmed that Qing Luo Chen's death was a suicide, in everyone's eyes, it was still related to Huang Anyuan. On the other hand, he was going to move. In the past year, Father Huang's business had been having all kinds of problems, and the family's assets were also being depleted. They knew that this was Qing Luo Chen's parents' revenge on their family. Father Huang had thought of resisting and calling the police. However, every time, it would only last for 3 days. What followed was even worse trouble. The Huang family compromised. He couldn't afford to offend them. The entire Hua nation was so big, and there were bound to be places that he couldn't reach. Huang Anyuan came to look for Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin had not seen Huang Anyuan for almost a year. She almost didn't recognize the person in front of her. In the past, Huang Anyuan was handsome, confident, young and energetic, with a kind of vigor that only belonged to teenagers. However, the boy standing in front of Gu Xingyin now. He was wearing a half-new jacket, his face was gloomy, his eyes were no longer as spirited as before, and there was even stubble on his chin that hadn't been shaved. He was simply a different person from the past Huang Anyuan. Gu Xingyin couldn't help thinking that if the Qing Luo Chen in the past saw this Huang Anyuan, she probably wouldn't even look at him. Chapter 537. Xian, I'm leaving Lin City. Huang Anyuan looked at the girl in front of him. In fact, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. He didn't know why he had to see her before he left. After seeing her, he realized that the two of them, who used to have a tacit understanding, no longer had anything in common. Okay, Gu Xingyin replied faintly. There was a long period of relative silence. Xian, will we still be in touch in the future? Huang Anyuan suddenly asked. The girl in front of him was one of the most important people in his life for the first 10 years. However, the feelings that he had accumulated for more than 10 years were exhausted in less than a year. Gu Xingyin rejected him without hesitation. It's better not. There's nothing we can say to each other. We can't be lovers, but we can be friends. Gu Xingyin said word by word. Being strangers is the best relationship we can have. Okay. Huang Anyuan smiled bitterly. She couldn't forgive him after all. Then, I wish you happiness in the future, Huang Anyuan said softly. Huang Anyuan said softly. Before he left, he added, when you look for a boyfriend in the future, wipe your eyes. Don't look for someone like me anymore. It's rare that you have self-awareness. Gu Xingyin answered him with silence. This was the last time Gu Xingyin saw Huang Anyuan. She didn't know where he moved to with his family. He and third high school had cut off all contact with the people around him. Even at the class reunion many years later, no one knew where he was. Gu Xingyin turned to leave and met Lu Yu at the corner. Lu Yu didn't say anything. He took Gu Xingyin's backpack with one hand and held her hand with the other hand habitually. Don't you want to ask what we talked about? Gu Xingyin asked deliberately. Lu Yu said faintly, anyway, it's just a few words. I can guess. Oh. Gu Xingyin's interest was piqued. Make a guess. Lu Yu looked at her. If I guess correctly, how are you going to reward me? Gu Xingyin hesitated for a moment. She needed a reward for this? Lu Yu's eyes flashed as he said, how about this, if I guess correctly, you have to agree to a request of mine. How about it? This kind of seemingly simple promise was often a trap. Gu Xingyin looked at him warily. Lu Yu looked at her round eyes and said, don't worry, there won't be any mischief. It will be very easy. You just have to nod and you can do it. Really? Gu Xingyin was suspicious. It's true. Lu Yu nodded solemnly. Well then, you can guess. I don't believe that you can really guess anything. Lu Yu looked at her with a smile and spoke softly. The more she listened, the bigger Gu Xingyin's eyes became. Did you eavesdrop on our conversation? Lu Yu spread his hands innocently. I was standing at the corner the whole time. You know, it's impossible to hear from that distance. Then why did you? Gu Xingyin was curious. Lu Yu smiled but didn't say anything. This is my secret. Silly, of course it's because I spent a lot of effort to understand you. I even tried to investigate that guy because I was jealous that he occupied the first 15 years of your life. Chapter 538. The second year of high school ended and the third year of high school began. She was very busy every day with all kinds of exams, papers, and homework. The walk home with Lu Yu every day became the most relaxing part of Gu Xingyin's life. The two of them did not hide their behavior and everyone could see the intimacy between the two of them. However, perhaps it was because the two of them were too calm, or perhaps it was because of the warm and enviable atmosphere between the two of them, no one felt that there was anything wrong with the two of them being together. On the 7th and 8th of June, Gu Xingyin walked out of the examination hall and looked up at the dazzling white sunlight. She wiped her sweat and walked out of the school. The first thing she saw was Mr. and Mrs. Chang, who had been waiting for her for a long time. Mrs. Chang handed her daughter the green bean soup she had prepared and said with concern, "You must be tired." She did not mention the exam at all. Gu Xingyin drank the sweet green bean soup and exhaled contentedly. "I'm fine." She meant what she said. After all, she was not as worried and anxious as a real examinee. She was confident about her results this time. But even so, Gu Xingyin still slept at home for 2 days after returning home after the exam. After that, there were all kinds of class gatherings, girlfriends' gatherings, and thanking parties. There were also confessions. Even Gu Xingyin received 2 unsolicited confessions from 2 boys in the same class. These youthful students seemed to want to make up for all the regrets they had in the 3 years of high school in just over 10 days. When everything calmed down, Gu Xingyin then realized that she had not seen Lu Yu for more than 10 days. Mrs. Chang suddenly spoke during dinner one day. "Xian, the college entrance examination is over. When are you going to bring that boy named Lu Yu back for us to meet?" Gu Xingyin looked up at her parents and realized that they had known about her relationship with Lu Yu for a long time. Other than herself and Lu Yu, everyone else thought of them as a couple. Who knew that there had not even been a confession between the two of them? But who made the rule that they had to say those 3 words to be considered a couple? Let's talk about it when the time comes, Gu Xingyin replied vaguely. Looking at her daughter, Nanny Cheng felt relieved. At that time, Xian did not allow her to send her to school, but how could she be at ease? She had secretly followed her many times, afraid that something bad would happen to her. Thus, she discovered Lu Yu, the boy that all the mothers in Lin City, including herself, liked very much. She watched as he sent Xian to school. The two of them were very close. Moreover, he was sent from year 1 to year 3. Her children and grandchildren would have their own blessings. Mother Chang had also gotten over it. Lu Yu seemed to be a very good boy, so she didn't have to worry about Xian. Gu Xingyin sent a message to Lu Yu that night. Are you there? If you're free tomorrow, let's have a meal together. Soon, the other side replied, okay, time and place. Gu Xingyin thought about it and decided on a place. Good night. She typed these 2 words. Lu Yu's reply was very prompt, good night. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but smile. She switched off her cell phone and fell asleep. Chapter 539. The next day, Gu Xingyin put in a lot of effort to dress up. The place she chose was a small park in Lin City. It was not very big and there were no amusement parks or other entertainment facilities, so there were relatively few people, but the environment was very beautiful. It was a sacred place for couples to date. When she arrived at the meeting place, there were still more than 10 minutes before the appointed time, but Lu Yu was already there waiting. They had not seen each other for more than 10 days, but there was no unfamiliarity between them, nor was there much excitement. Their relationship had always been like this. It was neither hot nor cold, but it flowed steadily. The two walked slowly along the path, occasionally talking about topics that interested each other. When they reached the lakeside, the two of them stopped at the same time. Which university are you going to apply to? Which university are you going to apply to? The two of them said at the same time. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but chuckle. Lu Yu also curled his lips. Me? My dream has always been to go to Capital University. Gu Xingyin said Changxian's dream. It was not only Changxian's dream, but also Changxian's parents had always hoped for their daughter. Gu Xingyin did not want to let them down. Capital University was one of the best universities in the country, and the admission cutoff was also a high level that ordinary students could not reach. Of course, with Changxian's grades, there was no problem at all. What about you? Lu Yu smiled softly. He looked at Gu Xingyin and said, I plan to follow in your footsteps. Wherever Xian goes to, I will go to the same university. His words of love were so unexpected. Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment, and a thin layer of red slowly rose on her face. Lu Yu looked at this rare beauty without blinking. 3 years had passed, and the girl's face and body, who was about to become an adult, had begun to grow. She was like a fully bloomed flower, revealing amazing beauty. The baby fat on her face had disappeared, and her height had grown from 1.6 meters to 1.7 meters. Her eyebrows were delicate, and her skin was like jade. The current Changxian had already grown into a tall and elegant beauty. She no longer looked like a little girl who hadn't grown up yet. Lu Yu had no doubt that he would face many love rivals in the future. Fortunately, he was 3 years earlier than all of them. He heard her small voice. What if I fail the exam? Lu Yu smiled. Then I'll repeat it with you. Gu Xingyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard him talking about this kind of thing as if it was child's play. If he really dared to do that, he would probably be beaten to death by his parents who had always been proud of him. Lu Yu suddenly called out to her in a very serious tone, Xian. Gu Xingyin seemed to have guessed something. She raised her head and met Lu Yu's eyes. For the first time in 3 years, Lu Yu unreservedly expressed the feelings in his heart. Lu Yu gazed deeply at her. You once promised me that I can make a request of you, and you can't refuse. Gu Xingyin nodded. Then, Lu Yu's eyes were filled with her. Xian, be my girlfriend. Gu Xingyin fell into the web of love that he had woven with deep affection. Okay. Lu Yu smiled. I'm so happy, Xian. I'll always remember this day. Lu Yu couldn't help but hug her tightly. Gu Xingyin had seen him smile countless times, but this was the first time she saw him smile so happily. Lu Yu looked as if he had the whole world. In Lu Yu's heart, Gu Xingyin was his whole world. Chapter 540. In the end, Gu Xingyin got into Capital University as she wished. Just as he said, Lu Yu applied for the same school as Gu Xingyin. No one was surprised by this result. During the last gathering after graduating from high school, Chang Xian's classmates even privately tugged at Gu Xingyin and said, Genius Lu seems like a very good person. Xian, you have to hold on to him well. Gu Xingyin did not know whether to laugh or cry, but she still thanked them for their kindness. A few days before going to university, Gu Xingyin invited Lu Yu over for a meal, which could be considered as a sign of their relationship. Mr. and Mrs. Chang had a good impression of Lu Yu. He was polite, good at his studies, and considerate to Xian. Lu Yu successfully won the hearts of his future father-in-law and mother-in-law. Gu Xingyin also went to the Lu family's house. She knew that Lu Yu's family was very well-to-do. At first, she was a little worried that his parents would not be easy to get along with. Don't worry. They spend most of their time abroad and are very open-minded. When they heard that I have a girlfriend, they were very happy. Lu Yu comforted her. He did not say that they heard that he had a girlfriend and were very curious about the girl who could make their son fall in love. They specially took a plane back to see Gu Xingyin. Lu Yu was afraid that if he said it, this girl would be even more nervous. Just as Lu Yu said, Lu Yu's parents were very friendly to her. Mother Lu even said in front of her son, Xian, our Lu Yu's personality is a little dull, but he has a good character. Don't dislike him. Gu Xingyin could not help but cover her mouth and laugh. Lu Yu looked at his mother helplessly. Is there anyone as capable as you to trick your son? When school started, the two of them set off together. 4 years in university. As soon as they graduated, Gu Xingyin was proposed to by Lu Yu. At their wedding, many former schoolmates from No. 3 high school and No. 1 high school came. Everyone looked at them with sincere blessings. Although I had expected this, I didn't think that the two of you would actually reach this stage, Zhang Yun said. There were countless couples in high school, but those who were able to walk down the aisle together and spend the rest of their lives together were less than 1 in 1,000. Lu Yu drank the wine in his cup in one gulp and said with a smile, Then you can continue to watch. Watch the two of us walk through this life in love and happiness. I do. When Gu Xingyin said this, all the guests applauded. Lu Yu and Gu Xingyin looked at the people below the stage. These people would be the witnesses to their happiness in the future. No one noticed that in a certain corner, there was a man in black casual clothes. He stared at the newlyweds on the stage without blinking. They exchanged vows, exchanged rings, and pledged their love for life. Huang Anyuan couldn't describe his feelings at this moment. He hadn't been to this city for many years. It was by chance that he found out about Changxian's marriage. At that time, he put aside everything at hand and finally rushed to the scene on the day of the wedding. He didn't know why he had to come and take a look. He didn't have any intention of destroying or being unwilling. He just wanted to take a look. He wanted to see if she was doing well or not, whether she was happy or not. Now, it seemed that she was doing well. The smile on her face couldn't lie. This was good too. The happiness that he couldn't give her would eventually be given by someone else. Chapter 541. Let's get a divorce. A piece of white paper with the words, Letter of Divorce, written on it was handed to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin paused for a moment. Seeing that she didn't respond, the owner of the hands became impatient. He said with disdain, Yan Ruohua, Lu Zijuan, have no feelings for you. You can't force a melon to be sweet. Let's part on good terms. Gu Xingyin finally reacted. She raised her head and calmly sized up the man in front of her. He was wearing a white shirt and a black vest. His hair was neat and tidy. His eyes and brows were handsome. He seemed to be in his 20s. He was the fiancé of this body, the young master of the Lu family, Lu Zijuan. Seeing her calm face, Lu Zijuan was a little surprised. He thought that this woman would cry and make a fuss. But it didn't matter. Anyway, he had enough of the wife arranged by this family. Gu Xingyin suddenly laughed softly. Her laughter was extremely cold and even full of disdain and ridicule. Young Master Lu, you keep saying that you want a divorce. But what did you give me? Letter of divorce? Gu Xingyin slowly tidied up the wrinkles on the sleeves. Her posture was elegant. It turns out that young Master Lu, who has received advanced education, still has the old stubborn ideas in his bones. Lu Zijuan frowned. What do you mean? Yan Ruohua, I tell you, no matter what, I will break off the relationship with you today. He suddenly thought of something and said, Are you waiting for my mother to come? Let me tell you, my mother also knows about what happened today. Don't be delusional. Just take the things and leave. Gu Xingyin sneered in her heart. The kind-looking old lady of the Lu family, Yan Ruohua always thought that this mother-in-law liked her. She didn't know that when she was divorced, the old lady was watching a play in the theater outside. She raised her head and saw Lu Zijuan's impatient face. She felt sick of it. Then, he walked toward his desk. What are you doing? Lu Zijuan frowned at her. What kind of trick was she playing? Gu Xingyin ignored her. She picked up the brush, dipped it in ink, and finished in one go. After she finished writing, she gently blew on the paper. When the ink was dry, she handed it to Lu Zijuan. Sign your name and we'll be even. Henceforth, we will live our own lives and not interfere with each other. At first glance, Lu Zijuan was attracted by the beautiful and elegant handwriting on the paper. This was written by Yan Ruohua. Wasn't she a wooden person who only knew how to embroider and sew? You wrote this? Gu Xingyin unceremoniously retorted, Young Master Lu, you're still so young. Do you have bad eyesight? It was obvious that he had just seen her finish writing. She knew what Lu Zijuan meant. In Lu Zijuan's heart, Yan Ruohua had always been a black and white background. When had he ever cared about what his wife would do? Lu Zijuan was mocked like this. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. He could only raise his head to look at the contents of the paper. A divorce letter? He looked up at Gu Xingyin in disbelief. Yes. Gu Xingyin nodded. Looking at him, she couldn't help but sneer, Young Master Lu, aren't you a self-proclaimed progressive? After you sign this divorce letter, we can be considered to have broken up peacefully. Chapter 542. It was as if Lu Zijuan had known his wife for the first time. In the few memories he had of her, every time he saw this woman, she would be wearing an old-fashioned cheongsam with a faint smile on her face. She would stand there quietly without any sense of existence. She was not sentimental and did not understand romance. She could not talk about Shelley or Hegel with him. He thought that if he handed her the divorce letter, she would cry and be unwilling, but in the end, she would still have no choice but to compromise. In the end, she would leave the Lu family in a mess and have no more care for him. But how could she be like this? He looked at Gu Xingyin carefully. Her face was still the same, but her expression was so different from his memory. There was a very bright light in her eyes, and her whole person became incomparably vivid. He had never found that his wife was such a great beauty. Young Master Lu, if there is no problem, hurry up and sign it. Gu Xingyin saw that he was only staring at her and urged impatiently. Lu Zijuan came to his senses and looked at the white paper in his hand with a moment of hesitation. Was he really going to sign it? Gu Xingyin looked at his face and decided to add fuel to the fire. Hurry up and sign it, young Master Lu. Your Lu Qingyi is still waiting for you in Yinshi class. If you don't sign it, you won't be able to get the beauty back. Right, Yin Yi was still waiting for him. Lu Zijuan thought of the woman who always looked at him with affection, and his heart fell down in an instant. He picked up the pen and signed his name without hesitation. Don't forget this. Gu Xingyin took a box of red ink over. Lu Zijuan looked at her impatient appearance and couldn't help but feel depressed in his heart. It was obviously he who wanted to divorce his wife. Why did she look even more impatient than him? He put his fingerprint on it with a dark face. Okay. Young Master Lu, I will pack up my things later. You should also send someone to check out all of my dowry. I will contact someone to move it over. I, Yan Ruohua, won't take anything from the Lu family, but I'll take everything that belongs to me. Gu Xingyin was in a good mood as she put the divorce letter into the box. She didn't forget to say this. Lu Zijuan looked at a certain woman with a bright and beautiful expression and felt very depressed in his heart. He always felt that he was the one who was dumped. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth, "Don't worry, my Lu family won't go so far as to covet your things." Gu Xingyin smiled and said, "That's good." Perhaps the young master's words were effective. Yan Ruohua's belongings were all tidied up and placed neatly in the yard. Very good. Gu Xingyin was quite satisfied with this. In the end, the Lu family was a big family. Although they weren't very good internally, they had to be decent on the surface. They wouldn't do something like embezzling a woman's dowry. At this moment, the dowry maid sent out by Gu Xingyin, Xiao Xiao, also came back. Have you found everything? Gu Xingyin asked. Xiao Xiao nodded and said, "Yes, Mississippi. I followed your instructions and found a small courtyard with a single door. There are well-off people nearby, so it's very safe. I also found a car." She remembered Mrs. instructions to find a house and a car. It didn't matter if it was expensive, the key was to have a guarantee of safety. The world was not safe for two weak women outside in the future. Chapter 543. Seeing that Gu Xingyin had changed into clothes suitable for traveling, Xiao Xiao asked hesitantly, "Miss, are we really not going back to the Yan family?" The Yan family? In the original plot, Yan Ruohua went home as soon as she was divorced by the Lu family. But what happened? Her father treated her as the shame of the Yan family and locked her up in the most remote yard all day long, not allowing her to see any guests. Her dowry was also taken away by her mother. She was not loved and was divorced. She had no money in her hands. It was easy to imagine what kind of life Yan Ruohua was living. However, Mrs. Lin, who had watched Yan Ruohua grow up, knew the main family better. "It's good that you don't go back. With master's temper, if he knows that you and the son-in-law, the young master of the Lu family divorced, I'm afraid he will be angry." Gu Xingyin nodded and said, "Let's find a place to stay first. When everything settles down, we will send a letter home." Gu Xingyin only had Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin to serve her. After that, she asked the servants to put all her dowry into the car. Then she got into another car and headed to the place where she had booked. Gu Xingyin closed her eyes and began to think about what would happen next. In the original plot, after Yan Ruohua was divorced and went home, her life was very bleak. She was full of talent and had a beautiful heart, but she was lonely all her life. She died of illness in her own yard in her 40s. It wasn't until many years after her death that the poetry collection, Ode to Freedom, that she wrote in that small courtyard, as well as the short story, Tearful Makeup, that she used herself as a blueprint to expose the injustice of this era towards women, finally shown in the literary world. When people learned about the short and miserable life of this stunning woman, they all expressed great pity and sympathy for her. But no matter how much pity there was, it was useless for Yan Ruohua at that time. That was a long time in the future. Now that she came to this world, Gu Xingyin would not let Yan Ruohua repeat the same fate again. As for Lu Zijuan, the culprit who caused Yan Ruohua's miserable life, Gu Xingyin sneered in her heart. He claimed that he was living in a new society and hated everything left behind from the old era. Therefore, he hated her, the wife chosen by his elders, very much. Therefore, he advocated free love and was madly infatuated with the actress Lu Yuni. Actors were affectionate, but actors were heartless. Lu Yuni was affectionate towards every man, but because she had seen so many men abandon their wives for her, she was stingy with her true feelings towards every man. She had said to Lu Zijuan, "If you divorce your wife, I'll be with you." It was just a joke. She said it casually, but Lu Zijuan took it seriously. When Lu Zijuan left Yan Ruohua and went to find Lu Yuni excitedly, she was drinking in another man's arms with a smile. Of course, Lu Zijuan was unwilling. He wanted to win back Lu Yuni's heart. However, although the Lu family was powerful, there were many more families in Cloud City that were more powerful than the Lu family. Lu Zijuan's leg was broken by one of Lu Yuni's men and he was carried back to the Lu family. The business of the Lu family was also suppressed by its rivals in the business circle and the situation was getting worse and worse. Lu Zijuan's father fell ill in a hurry and the head of the family was replaced by Lu Zijuan, who only knew how to talk on paper. The result could be imagined. In just 3 years, the Lu family, which used to be a rich and powerful family, had to sell their ancestral property to barely survive. Gu Xingyin only wanted to say one word about such an ending: retribution. Chapter 544. Lin Mengya and Lin Mengya arrived at the rented yard. The owners of the house were already waiting for them. They were an old couple in their 50s. Seeing Gu Xingyin's posture, they hesitated for a moment. Gu Xingyin said with a smile, "We moved here from North City not long ago. I happen to be studying here, so I rented the yard in advance. My family will come over in a few days. So I brought a little more than usual." Of course, Lin Mengya couldn't tell them that she lived alone with 2 servants. Although this family looked nice, she didn't know what they were thinking. It would be bad if they had any bad intentions. Sure enough, after hearing Lin Mengya's words, the mistress smiled and said, "No wonder you brought so many things. It turns out that you are moving. My wife and I are also going to move in with our son. That's why this courtyard is empty." The 2 sides quickly negotiated the price. Gu Xingyin rented it for a whole year. Both sides signed the agreement. Gu Xingyin asked Xiao Xiao to pay the money, and the procedures were completed. "Miss, what are we going to do in the future?" Xiao Xiao was actually a little confused. She only knew how to do one thing since she was a child, even if it was to serve Yan Ruohua. Now that she suddenly moved out, she felt a little lost. Mrs. Lin rolled her eyes at her. "You will serve Miss like how you used to serve her." Gu Xingyin actually didn't know what to do at the moment. She knew a lot of things, but she didn't know what to do in this world. The simplest and most comfortable way was to do nothing. Yan Ruohua's dowry was enough for her and her servants to live a comfortable life for the rest of their lives. Lin Mengya only needed to eat, drink, and have fun. Then she could publish what Yan Ruohua had written. Naturally, she could win a good reputation. But in this way, what was the meaning of her coming to this world? Before Yan Ruohua died, what she regretted most was that she didn't have the courage to resist when she was divorced. When she was neglected by her family, she chose to endure. She was full of talent, but she was imprisoned in this small yard for the rest of her life. She had almost never fought for her own life. If she couldn't let Yan Ruohua live a wonderful life without regrets, why did Gu Xingyin have to come here? Wait a minute. Eat, drink and be merry. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. This was not a bad idea. She vaguely had some plans for the future. Yunxi class. Lu Yuni, the number 1 cyan-dressed girl in Yunxi class who was famous for her beauty in Yunsheng, was singing the song Drunken Imperial Concubine on the stage. What was different from the past was that she only had one audience this time. Lu Yuni gently waved her sleeves. Her gentle and affectionate eyes were affectionately looking at the young man sitting on the yellow pear-wood chair. The man had a sharp gaze, a high nose bridge, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. His military uniform was meticulous, and the buttons of his uniform were tightly fastened all the way to the top. He sat upright on the chair. He did not have any reaction to Lu Yuni's teasing. When the song was over, Lu Yuni got off the stage. She was still in her complicated costume. She bowed to the man and said in a mellow voice, "I'm Lu Yuni. Greetings to young Marshal Huangfu." She raised her head and happened to meet Huangfu Qi's eyes. In just a moment, she seemed to be surrounded by endless coldness and murderous intent. Her face under the heavy makeup suddenly turned pale, and her body even began to tremble uncontrollably. This man was too terrible. Chapter 545. Huangfu Qi. Yun City's young marshal. His father, Huangfu Gua, controlled the forces of 8 provinces in the entire northwest region. In this chaotic world, the one with the army was the boss. Huangfu Gua could be called a local emperor. In addition to his wife, Huangfu Gua also had 8 concubines. However, for some unknown reason, except for the wife who gave birth to Huangfu Qi, the only son, the other concubines all gave birth to beautiful daughters. If there were no accidents, in 100 years, the master of Yun City and even the 8 provinces in the northwest would be the person in front of her. The leader of the Yunshi class had already told Lu Yuni in private that as long as she could capture the young marshal's heart, she would not need to perform for any high-ranking officials and nobles. She could directly fly to the top of the tree. If she was lucky, she would be promoted to a concubine. Then she would really have a golden life. However, Lu Yuni secretly complained in her heart. Her charm, which had always been successful among men, seemed to be unattractive in the eyes of the young marshal. "Lu Yuni?" The man opposite her spoke. His voice was very low and seemed to have a strange rhythm. It was very attractive. Lu Yuni's heart trembled violently. She stood obediently with her eyes lowered. "You sang well." Huangfu Qi stood up. His light green military uniform brought a gust of wind and brushed past the tip of Lu Yuni's nose. He was ready to leave. Lu Yuni bit her lip. Thinking of the leader's instructions, she couldn't help but muster up the courage to take a step forward. "Young marshal." Huangfu Qi stopped and turned to look at her. Lu Yuni looked at his flawless side profile and suddenly understood why this man was the dream man of all the women in Yun City. "Young marshal, don't you need Yuni to serve you?" The beautiful actress looked at him shyly with her naturally charming eyes and gently lowered her head. With such a beautiful face and such an alluring invitation, there were very few men who could refuse. However, the one in front of her was one. "No need." Huangfu Qi turned his head and slowly walked away. Lu Yuni wanted to ask him to stay again, but unfortunately, he did not give her any chance. Not long after Huangfu Qi left, the leader of the Yunshi class, who had been waiting outside, came in. "What's wrong? Haven't you always been good at dealing with men? It wasn't easy for a real crown prince to come this time, but you can't even hold him back." The class leader's heart also ached. If Lu Yuni could get close to young Marshal Mu, their Yunshi class's position in Yunchang's theater world would truly be as stable as Mount Tai. Lu Yuni had always been used to being flattered. Naturally, she also had the temper of the red horn. Hearing this, she sneered, "He doesn't like a prostitute like me. Maybe he dislikes how many people I have served in his heart. If you really want me to enter a rich family with a clean record, fine. From tomorrow onwards, I will only be in charge of the opera. Those old Master Wang and young Master Li, don't ask me to drink with them." When the leader heard this, he knew that she was angry, so he quickly smiled apologetically and said, "Hey, my great Aunt Lu, I'm just worried about you." "What are you angry about?" "Be careful not to lose your voice from anger." Lu Yuni's eyes wandered. "I'm also anxious. Who doesn't know that you love me the most?" As if nothing had happened before, the two of them instantly became cheerful. However, no one knew what she was thinking in her heart. Chapter 546. Gu Xingyin walks on the street. All kinds of people pass by her on the street. "Miss, aren't we going shopping?" Xiao Xiao is a little puzzled. Miss takes her out today, and she thinks they are going to buy something. However, Miss takes her to wander around the street all morning, but they don't buy anything. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, I came out today to go shopping in reality. That's right. She wanted to see what kind of life the people in this world, especially the women, lived. She wanted to know what they pursued and what they needed. Xiao Xiao looks at her miss in confusion. She doesn't understand the meaning of this sentence. Isn't shopping just buying things? Gu Xingyin looks at her confused look and smiles. Let's go. We've been shopping all morning. I'll take you to have a big meal. Xiao Xiao is happy to hear this. Thank you, Mississippi. The two walk to the famous Yunqing Delicacies restaurant nearby. Suddenly, there is a cry of surprise behind. Thief! Gu Xingyin turns back and sees a thin man in a black leather jacket and a cap running towards her with a lady's handbag in his hand. He seems to be a little flustered. The lady whose handbag was robbed also has a servant chasing after her. Gu Xingyin steps aside with Xiao Xiao. Then, when the thin man passes by her, she gently stretches out her leg. Poof! The thin man falls directly on his face. It's really a heavy fall. The thin man gets up quickly. Seeing that the person chasing him has already come to him, he can't run away. He looks ferocious and simply stops running. He doesn't even pick up the bag that just fell on the ground. He rushes straight to Gu Xingyin. Bitch, you spoil my fun. It seems that he wants to teach Gu Xingyin a lesson before being caught. Gu Xingyin looked at him calmly. She was not afraid at all. Although Yan Ruohua's body was weak, it was not a problem for her to display some fighting skills. Xiao Xiao was even more nervous, ready to stand in front of her miss at any time. When the skinny man's hand grabbed Gu Xingyin's shoulder, her expression turned cold and she was about to make a move. Bang! Blood splattered in front of Gu Xingyin, some of it staining her clothes. The skinny man's hand fell limply. He couldn't care less about Gu Xingyin now. Instead, he held his right hand and wailed. Gu Xingyin sensed something and looked in a certain direction. The cold-faced man had just put away the gun in his hand. He calmly ordered the people behind him. He dares to commit theft and robbery in Yun City. Cripple one of his hands and send him to the law enforcement department. Release him only when he becomes obedient. Someone responded to the order. Soon, two people in military uniforms came over and took the skinny man away. The skinny man seemed to be scared when he saw the man who shot the gun. He was taken back without any resistance. After dealing with this matter, the man turned around and left. From the shooting to now, he didn't look in the direction of Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin looked at his back thoughtfully. Miss, are you all right? I was really scared to death just now. Xiao Xiao finally came back to her senses, and when she saw the bloodstains on Gu Xingyin's clothes, she began to make a fuss about nothing. Chapter 547. A maid like Xiao Xiao, who has served her master since childhood, may have never seen blood in her life. She was quite frightened. Gu Xingyin comforted her. I'm fine. Don't worry. She continued helplessly, it seems that I can't treat you to a big meal. I'm afraid that no place dares to let me in. The world was not peaceful. Indeed, no one dared to let a person with blood in her body enter the door, even if the other party looked like a weak woman. Mississippi, a hesitant voice came from behind them. It was the madam whose handbag had been robbed. Gu Xingyin turned her head. She was far away before, so she didn't see clearly. Now she looked carefully and understood why the man chose this madam. This madam was about 30 years old. She was wearing an emerald green cheongsam and a pure white fur shawl. Emerald green was a very challenging color. If one wasn't careful, they would be overshadowed by it. But obviously, this madam didn't have such troubles. Her skin was white, and there was even no fine line on her well-maintained face. The emerald green cheongsam showed more elegance and youth on her body. Looking at her body, the thumb-sized pearl necklace and the emerald green ring on her finger, all showed that she lived a good life. This was a madam who knew how to dress up and lived a rich life. When the madam saw Gu Xingyin for the first time, she was secretly amazed by her appearance and temperament. She didn't know when there was such a lady in Yuncheng. She should have known such a lady with such appearance and bearing. Thank you for helping me just now. She saw clearly that it was Gu Xingyin who stretched out her foot and tripped the man who robbed her. She even almost suffered revenge because of this. Gu Xingyin smiled politely. It's just a little effort. You're welcome. She pointed to the blood on her body and smiled embarrassedly. It's not suitable for me to stay outside for a long time. The madam apologized. It's because of me. My house is nearby. You have to go home with me to change clothes. She laughed again. Look at me, I forgot to introduce myself. My husband's surname is Shen, and he's a businessman. He lives nearby at 33 Baolin Street. Gu Xingyin shook her head. That's too troublesome. My house isn't too far from here. You can just go home and change. When the madam saw Gu Xingyin's insistence, she couldn't say anything more. She just asked the servant behind her to hand over a name card. This is my name card. My address is on it. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come here to find me. Gu Xingyin lowered her head and thanked him. This was the other party's good intentions. If he were to refuse again, then he would be unable to tell good from bad. When they get home, Mrs. Lin is frightened to see Gu Xingyin's appearance. She hurriedly asks what happened. After listening to Xiao Zhao's story, Mrs. Lin looked at Gu Xingyin disapprovingly. Oh, my dear miss, this is not something a delicate lady like you should do. How can you be so courageous? These villains are all deranged. What if they become ruthless? Well, Mrs. Lin, go and prepare a bucket of hot water for me. I want to take a good bath to get rid of the bad luck. Gu Xingyin interrupted Mrs. Lin's nagging with a smile. Good. Mrs. Lin's eyes brighten when she hears this. Yes, it's time to get rid of the bad luck. Chapter 548. In a place that Gu Xingyin didn't know, Huang Fuqi was looking at something carefully. It was information on Yan Ruohua's childhood. Divorce? He repeated this sentence, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. She's got character. He thought of how the woman's expression didn't change when she saw blood splatter on her body, and a trace of admiration flashed through his eyes. A divorce seemed like something she would do. But this information, Huang Fuqi frowned. Although Yan Ruohua had read poetry and books since she was a child and had studied under famous scholars, her personality was that of a typical lady from an old society. She was so gentle that it could even be described as cowardly. Her divorce from Lu Zijuan should be the most deviant thing she had done in her life. How could a person change so much in such a short time? Could it be that she was really hurt by love, causing her temperament to change so drastically? He thought of the person he saw on the street earlier. Before he shot her, she made a gesture with her hand. She was clearly going to defend herself. Wasn't the first reaction of a young lady from a wealthy family who had lived in a mansion since she was a child to avoid such a thing? There was something wrong with this woman. Keep an eye on this woman for me. She lives. Huang Fuqi ordered his subordinates. Gu Xingyin had no idea that a certain man had become suspicious of her identity. She had been careless. She had thought that after leaving the Lu family, there would be no one who was familiar with Yan Ruohua, so her behavior had inevitably revealed some traces. Who would have thought that young Marshal Huangfu, whom she had only met once, would specially send someone to investigate her? Huang Fuqi didn't know why he was inexplicably interested in a woman. It must be because she was too suspicious. He told himself. Host, someone has already become suspicious of your identity. Please pay attention to your personal behavior. Once your identity is suspected by many people, the host is likely to be discovered by the laws of the world and expelled. The system immediately detected some kind of information. Suspect? Who? Gu Xingyin asked. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. The news of her divorce from Lu Zijuan shouldn't have reached the Yan family in another city yet. Besides, the Yan family couldn't easily suspect their daughter's identity before seeing her in person. Could it be Lu Zijuan? He had never cared about what Yan Ruohua was like. Now that the two of them had nothing to do with each other, he had probably forgotten about her. Why would he think of her for no reason? The system's body kept flashing with white light. The system can only collect information, but cannot determine the other person's identity. But that night, Gu Shengyin knew who it was. Her house was being watched. As long as the system checked the identities of those people, it would be very easy to find out who sent them. It's actually him. Gu Shengyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's Youngz's eyes young Marshal. S Huangfu's. Should she say, hurt, his, during the day, he acted as if he wasn't interested in him at all, but in private, he sent someone to investigate his identity. Teet heat no test hims. However, no matter how his identity changed, Gu Shengyin always believed in one thing. That was, this man would never hurt her. Chapter 549. Just take it as a security guard for free. Gu Shengyin doesn't tell Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin about it. On the one hand, she doesn't want them to worry. On the other hand, if they expose their whereabouts, how can she find out when Huangfu Chi's people are so secretive? It will be hard to explain at that time. The next day, Gu Shengyin starts her career. Yinsheng Daily is the most popular newspaper in Yinsheng. Because the Huangfu family, which is in charge of the 8 provinces in the northwest, is in Yinsheng, this newspaper is also a wind vane of the 8 provinces in the northwest. Most of the articles in Yinsheng Daily are about some political events, and the rest are the patriotic remarks of some famous literati and their own political opinions. Less are some short serialized articles, and a few businessmen spend a lot of money to advertise in it. Gu Shengyin aims at Yinsheng Daily. Yes, what she wants to do is to publish some small articles through Yinsheng Daily. As for the content, Gu Shengyin has experienced countless worlds. She says, what do women care about most? Beauty, dress, appearance. Everything beautiful and the things that can make them beautiful. Women in this era were subjected to too many restrictions. Except for a small number of people, who have the conditions and capital to pursue beauty as they want, such as Mrs. Shen. Most women, every day, are in charge of everything at home, take care of children, and put up with their husband's extravagance outside. Maybe one day they will bring back a beautiful concubine. Starting from becoming beautiful, they become more confident. Gu Shengyin picked up his pen and wrote his first submission letter. She knows what Yinsheng Daily is advocating now. Liberation and freedom. The next day, a short article with a completely different style appeared in Yinsheng Daily. The woman, whose pen name is Lin Jinka, attracted countless people at the beginning of the article. When I wrote this article, I had just divorced my husband. It's not a divorce, but a divorce. This is probably the most courageous and least regretful thing I've ever done in my life. I've never done anything wrong to him. I've never done anything wrong to my family, but he wants to divorce me because he likes a woman outside. Perhaps there was resentment and unwillingness, but more than that, there was relief. Since the monarch has no heart, I will give up. This sentence has been passed down for thousands of years, but how many people can really do it? In this era, such things were common. Even if Lu Zijuan saw it, he would not suspect that the guest was Yan Ruahua. Many of the noblewomen fell into deep thought after seeing this. Most of the reactions came from the female students who had received modern education. Well done, this is what we women should be like. You have so many women outside, but you're so picky about me. Do you really think that women are made of mud? However, in another part of the crowd, this article caused a huge uproar. This is ridiculous. A woman should have 3 obedience and 4 virtues. She was despised and abandoned by her husband's family, but she didn't feel ashamed. How could she publish such a story in the newspaper? Public morals are really degenerating day by day. This was a well-known literary giant. Who is this Lin Jinka? How can a woman who can't even win her husband's heart be so arrogant? At this time, no one knew what kind of changes this woman called Lin Jinka would bring to Yunsheng and the women of the Republican Alliance in the future. Chapter 550. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Just as everyone was paying attention to this forest dweller, or trying to guess who this person was, the forest dweller suddenly spoke. She suddenly disappeared without a trace. Someone even wrote a letter to Yunqing Daily to ask, but the other party just replied apologetically that they were only responsible for receiving manuscripts and publishing what they thought was valuable. They didn't know who Forest Visitor was. Even if they knew, they wouldn't reveal the author's information. Otherwise, who would dare to submit manuscripts to Yunqing Daily? Gu Xingyin didn't disappear without a trace. She just didn't publish one article after another when her popularity was at its peak like other people. Hunger marketing was an extremely effective strategy in the future. Of course, Huang Fuqi also read the newspaper. Unlike others, he was the only one other than Gu Xingyin who knew who Forest Visitor was. He was surprised by her calmness. At first, he thought that even though she had been strong-willed once in the Liu family, even though it was a divorce, which sounded better than being divorced, she was just a pitiful woman in the eyes of outsiders. She should be sad in her heart. Any woman who encountered such a thing should be sad. But looking at her writing, there was no sense of sadness at all. He only saw a free and easy feeling and a sense of relief. Her previous unhappy marriage had been a burden to her. Huang Fuqi found that the more he knew about this woman, the more he was attracted by her unusualness. She was a strange woman. At first, he just wanted to know about her because he suspected her identity. But now, he wanted to know more about this person and observe her. Huang Fuqi knew that such thoughts were dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he would probably fall into it. There was no solution. A week later, people found that there was another article in Yunqing Daily. This woman seemed to be writing a diary, describing her life. Her writing style was very elegant and smooth. Even a simple daily diary was as fascinating as a humorous short story. Because of the last article, everyone was very curious about Forest Visitor, a woman who lived alone with her husband. There were even many people who admired her or hated her who wanted to see what kind of life she was living alone. Gu Xingyin showed them the elegant life of a single aristocrat. In the short 1,000-word article, people seemed to see the image of a leisurely and elegant woman. She read and studied every day to enrich herself. She didn't need to be busy taking care of her family and had plenty of time to dress herself up. Every day after dinner, she could take her to various places in Yunsheng to walk around and exercise her body. In the end, Gu Xingyin revealed her purpose. At the end of the article, she attached a design drawing that she had drawn herself. Gu Xingyin, who had lived in various worlds, was experienced enough to be considered knowledgeable. She knew what kind of clothes looked good on her and how to match them to bring out her temperament. In this era that had obviously just been liberated from the feudal era, the things in her mind were enough for her to easily lead the trend. It was a slightly modified cheongsam design. The most representative clothing for women in this era was the cheongsam. Gu Xingyin didn't expect to change people's aesthetic standards so quickly. Take your time. Chapter 551. The name Lin Jinka caused an uproar again. This time, it was not only her name that caused an uproar, but also the cheongsam that she had modified. Originally, some of the noblewomen in the tailor shops only thought that the dress she had drawn was very beautiful, so they wanted to try it out by themselves. But they did not expect that the effect would be so good. She had only slightly adjusted the collar and sleeves, and changed the proportion of the dress. Why did it look completely different when she wore it? Many tailors and clothing shops saw a business opportunity. They began to produce cheongsams of this style in batches according to the style. The fabric was good and the workmanship was exquisite, so the price was naturally expensive. The cheongsam that was suitable for most people was of course the cheongsam that was of good quality and cheap. A trend of improving cheongsam was set off in the entire Yun city. Now, walking on the streets, one could see women wearing the latest new cheongsam. Along with this new cheongsam, the name Lin Jinka was also popular. Many people were speculating that the person who could come up with such an exquisite and simple style of dress must be smart and pure. They did not know what kind of woman her husband was infatuated with that he was willing to abandon such a first wife. What do you think this Lin Jinka is doing? How did she think that the collar could be like this? Huang Fuqi sat on the chair helplessly. His graceful and elegant mother, Madame Bai, was wearing the most popular cheongsam at this time and was talking to him. Madame Bai was the legal wife of the Huangfu kingdom and only had one child, Huangfu Qi. However, this one son had established her unshakable position in the Huangfu kingdom's harem. At this moment, she said happily, "I really want to meet this Lin Jinka. I think she must be a beautiful and gentle lady." Huangfu Qi thought of a certain figure that he had caught a glimpse of. Beautiful and gentle? He had an inexplicable feeling of secret joy that belonged to him. He said casually, "Maybe." Just as everyone was talking about Lin Jinka, she disappeared again. Only Huangfu Qi knew that the woman was actually just strolling around Yun City every day with her little maid. Every day, her subordinates would report that she went to a very famous place today, went to a restaurant that was said to be opened by the imperial chef of the previous dynasty tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Huangfu Qi could not help but want to laugh. This woman was really like what she wrote in her article. Women should know how to enjoy themselves. She was different from all the women he had met. To when the popularity of the cheongsam died down a little, Gu Xingyin estimated that it was about time and wrote another article to Yunqing Daily. This time, her article was sent directly to the chief editor's desk. The reason was that in the past half a month, the newspapers that published Lin Jinka's article and the cheongsam had been sold out. The staff of the newspaper office had worked overtime for a week and reprinted 3 times. Except for a few major events that were known to the whole country, Yunqing Daily had never sold so many copies, and Xingyin and Lin Jinka, Lin Jiao, Lin Jinka. This middle-aged chief editor was an intellectual who wore glasses. He not only had a wife who worked hard at home, but also a beautiful and affectionate woman who understood his words. He was originally very disdainful of Lin Jinka's comments, but at this time, who cares? Those who could bring him bonuses were gold nuggets. Chapter 552. This time, in addition to Gu Xingyin's usual speech about how women should live for themselves, he also published an article that lived up to everyone's expectations. This time, she also published a design she had drawn. It was still a cheongsam, but it was very different from the previous one. It was an exquisite and elegant close-fitting long dress. The design of the fishtail at the end of the dress was something that women in Yunqing had never seen before. It looked a little strange, but it had a strange beauty. This time, the people in the clothing stores learned their lesson. They hurriedly bought the newspaper and made a set according to the design in it overnight to see the effect. Then, the businessmen with a keen sense of smell immediately found a business opportunity. This dress was obviously designed for the upper-class women. No woman who went out to work every day would wear such a dress. Needless to say, the rich women who secretly paid attention to Forest Visitor found their own tailors and made a set. Beautiful. Although such a design had high requirements for the figure, wasn't it the same for a cheongsam? The popularity of the fishtail dress was within Gu Xingyin's expectation. After all, it was a classic design. Women were born with a sense of smell for beauty. Not long after, at the banquets of the upper-class society in Yunqing, the ladies' formal dresses were quietly replaced by fishtail dresses. Those foreigners who had always been arrogant and mocked Chinese women for only wearing cheongsams were extremely surprised and asked, "What kind of dress is this?" Then, some rich women in Yunqing proudly told them that it was designed by the designer of Yunqing. Gu Xingyin wanted such an effect. What she wanted was not only to be published in the newspaper every half a month or every other time. She was waiting for someone to take the initiative to come to her. Soon, that person showed up. Because the person didn't know Gu Xingyin's identity, he directly sent a letter to Gu Xingyin by writing to Yunqing Daily. Yunqing Daily sent the letter to the mailbox where the remuneration was distributed every time. It was a clothing factory. They expressed their interest in Gu Xingyin's designs and were willing to cooperate with her. They were also willing to give her 30% of the profits. All the materials and labor costs would be borne by them, and Gu Xingyin would receive 30% of the profits. Such conditions were quite generous. This boss had a good eye for business and had the guts to gamble. He was the first businessman to extend an olive branch to Gu Xingyin, and it was highly likely that he would be the one to give the designer the most profit. Gu Xingyi knew how much risk the other party had to take. Because of this, she admired such a businessman even more. Furthermore, she glanced at his name card. His surname was Shen. Shen Yuanxing and his wife came to an elegant tea house in Yinqing early in the morning. He had been in a good mood these days because the mysterious Ms. Lin Jinka had agreed to cooperate with him, and they had agreed to meet here at 2:00 in the afternoon for a detailed discussion. He was probably the first person to know Lin Jinka's true identity. He was a little excited when he thought about it. Considering that the other party was a lady, he was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable. He also took his wife with him. What kind of person do you think she will be? Mrs. Shen was wearing the modified cheongsam that had been very popular since it came out. She was also very curious about Lin Jinka. Are the two of you Mr. and Mrs. Shen? A gentle voice sounded. Chapter 553. For some reason, Mrs. Shen felt that the voice was very familiar. She looked up and saw that it was indeed someone she knew. You are? Mrs. Shen couldn't believe it. Gu Xingyin smiled and nodded. Hello, Mrs. Shen. I'm Lin Jinka. Mr. Shen also stood up and shook hands with Gu Xingyin in amazement. He looked at the woman in front of him. Her long hair was loosely braided and tied with a ribbon at the end. A few strands of hair fell naturally on her cheeks. Yan Ruohua had the appearance of a classic beauty, willowy eyebrows, almond-shaped eyes, and an oval face. As a man, Shen Yuanxing couldn't understand her husband who had fallen in love with another woman. What kind of woman could make him give up such a beauty? However, this kind of thing touched her sore spot, so Mr. Shen didn't ask much. How should I address you, Mr. Lin Jinka? Nowadays, people would also use honorifics for talented women. My surname is Yen. Mr. Shen nodded. Hello, Miss Yen. I've already introduced myself in the name card. I'm Shen Yuanxing, the boss of White Cloud Cloth. At this time, Mrs. Shen spoke. She was more interested in Gu Xingyin's dress. Miss Yen, I've never seen the style of the dress you're wearing. Did you also design it yourself? Gu Xingyin chuckled inwardly. She had specially worn such a dress today to pique the other party's curiosity. She nodded. It's a design I drew in my spare time. Today, she was wearing a long white dress that reached her ankles. The shirt had a small lapel collar, but the collar was a very classical lantern sleeve. The two sides were tied into a ribbon, and the pearl chain around her waist was tightened. She looked fresh and elegant. Seeing Gu Xingyin's dress, Mr. Shen didn't hesitate and immediately decided to cooperate with Gu Xingyin. Shen Yuanxing proposed a small change. You're willing to give me 20% of White Cloud Cloth's share. Gu Xingyin was a little surprised. At that time, the ownership of property was very important. She didn't expect Shen Yuanxing to make such a request. Shen Yuanxing's attitude was very sincere. Miss Yen, I'm a businessman. I think it's a very pleasant thing to be able to work with you. I'm willing to give 20% of the shares to Miss Yen so that we can witness the rise of White Cloud Cloth firm together. He had his own selfish motives. Although giving Gu Xingyin a 20% share seemed like a loss in the short term, this was the only way Miss Yen would wholeheartedly hope for White Cloud Textile Store's business to prosper. With Miss Yen's talent, she would probably be able to bring much more to White Cloud Textile Store in the future than what he was giving out now. Gu Xingyin pondered for a long time and finally agreed to this request. Then, Miss Yen, I wish us a happy cooperation. Shen Yuanxing later wrote in his recollections, the best decision I've ever made in my life was to cooperate with Madame Yen before she had fully revealed her talent to the world. Later, he was described as the most successful investor in history books. Of course, this was all in the future. Now, Shen Yuanxing was just the owner of a small business in Yuncheng, and Gu Xingyin was just a designer with a little reputation in Yuncheng. Half a month later, Lin Jinka released a new style of clothing in Yuncheng Daily. Then, there was a declaration. The general idea was that from now on, she wouldn't release any more clothes. She had already signed a contract with White Cloud Textile Store and would release new clothes regularly. If there was a need, they could pay attention. It was also at this time that some businessmen who were still on the sidelines vaguely realized what they had missed. Chapter 554. To some extent, Gu Xingyin's life was quite leisurely. She only needed to submit a design paper to Bai Yinxing every month, and publish a chicken soup in Yinxing Daily from time to time. Yes, chicken soup. She didn't know which world this kind of comforting, encouraging articles were called chicken soup articles. She dressed up carefully today and went to Yunxi class with Xiao Xiao. "Miss, why do we have to go to that kind of place?" Xiao Xiao was a little indignant. In her heart, she didn't have a good impression of Lu Yuni, who made her disliked by the ex-son-in-law. To be honest, Gu Xingyin didn't have much resentment towards Lu Yuni. After all, she was just an actress. Accompanying her benefactor was just her job. Lu Yuni's Qingyi is the best in Yincheng. How can we not see it? Besides, it is said that she herself is also a great beauty. Gu Xingyin said with interest. Yan Ruohua was also a great beauty. It was just that she was beautiful, but too dignified and elegant. She was destined to be less popular than such a beauty. Xiao Xiao didn't understand. "Miss, do you really just want to watch the show? Don't you hate that Lu Yuni?" Gu Xingyin asked back, "Why should I hate her? If I really want to hate, I should hate Lu Zijuan more. Lu Zijuan can't control himself. Even if Lu Yuni didn't exist, there might be Yang Yuni, Zhao Yuni." But, although Xiao Xiao felt that Gu Xingyin's words were reasonable, she still felt that something was wrong. Anyway, she just didn't like that Lu Yuni. Gu Xingyin looked at Xiao Xiao's expression and wanted to laugh. This little girl was indignant for Yan Ruohua. "Xiao Xiao, don't worry. I just want to see her. I don't like her that much. Just like you said, she's just an actress. Is it worth it for you to be so angry?" When Lu Qingyi appeared, the seats were always very scarce. An ordinary seat would cost about a month's living expenses for an ordinary person. Gu Xingyin sat on a chair with a smile. She looked around and realized that men were not the only ones who were here to watch the show. Just like her, there were also many noble ladies who brought along their maids. After all, Lu Yuni's voice was really good. Many true drama fans were her regular customers. The first few to perform were the other members of Yunxi's class. After all, they were one of the best opera troupes in Yincheng. Even if they were not as famous as Lu Yuni, their foundation was not bad. Gu Xingyin sipped her tea as she watched. She didn't feel bored. The song ended. Gu Xingyin noticed that many people around her straightened their backs without leaving a trace. They stopped eating their snacks and put down the teacups in their hands. She knew that Lu Yuni was going to appear. It was like a cloud floating over from the horizon. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but praise it when she saw it. No matter what kind of person Lu Yuni was, her acting skills were indeed top-notch. Then, Lu Yuni started singing. "The Kuan Mountain Jade shatters, the phoenix calls." This was a poem written by a very famous poet for a musician. Gu Xingyin felt that it was very good to use at this moment. Lu Yuni quickly finished singing a song and went off the stage. The rule of being the pillar of Yunxi's class was that she only sang once a day. A famous actress had to have the temperament of a famous actress. "Let's go, Xiao Xiao." Gu Xingyin called her maid. "Miss, are we really going to leave like this?" Xiao Xiao still couldn't believe it. According to the script, shouldn't the current development be to find someone to settle the score? Chapter 555. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but knock on her maid's head. "I told you not to listen to those boring scripts." Gu Xingyin glared at her helplessly. She didn't care about Lu Zijuan at all, nor did she care about Lu Yuni. She only wanted Yan Ruohua to lead a good life. If she really disregarded her status to make things difficult for an actress, not to mention whether she could succeed, this matter itself would be degrading. Needless to say, if this fell into the eyes of some people, she was afraid that she couldn't forget Lu Zijuan at all, and her previous straightforwardness was just pretending to be free and easy. Why bother? She was looking for trouble for herself. The wicked would be punished by God. She didn't have to do anything. In the original plot, these two people didn't have a good ending. But sometimes, the truth was that if you didn't want to find trouble, trouble would come to find you. Gu Xingyin had just walked out of the theater with a smile when she heard a hesitant call. Yan Ruohua. Gu Xingyin was a little helpless. Now in Yunsheng, only Yan Ruohua's former husband's family could recognize her original identity, the Lu family. And there was only one person in the Lu family who was most likely to appear in this place. That Lu Zijuan who was willing to die for Lu Yuni. It was indeed Lu Zijuan. Lu Zijuan looked at Gu Xingyin with some surprise. They hadn't seen each other for just 2 months, how could she have changed so much? If he wasn't so familiar with Yan Ruohua's face, he would have thought that he had recognized the wrong person. You. Lu Zijuan looked at Gu Xingyin in a strange way. In fact, even the previous Yan Ruohua was also strange to him. Lu Zijuan didn't know what to say. He suddenly thought of something, and his face changed. Why are you here? What do you want to do to Yuni? Gu Xingyin had been watching the wonderful changes in his face as if she was watching a performance. At this moment, she finally heard him choke out a sentence. She looked at the people coming and going at the entrance of the theater. Some people saw the three of them standing there and cast curious gazes on them. Xiao Xiao moved closer to Gu Xingyin uneasily. Gu Xingyin looked around and took the initiative to walk to the side. Lu Zijuan thought she was going to leave and couldn't help but say, Yan Ruohua, stop right there. I told you to stop right there. Gu Xingyin did not even bother with him. Did she not find it embarrassing? When Lu Zijuan saw that this woman didn't pay attention to his words at all, he was originally furious. However, when he saw that she didn't pay attention to him at all, he was speechless for a while before following her. If there's anything, just come at me. Yun Yi is innocent. Lu Zijuan caught up with Gu Xingyin and opened his mouth to say this. Gu Xingyin turned around and looked at Lu Zijuan as if he was an idiot. I've already divorced you. What else do you think I want to do? Find trouble with Lu Yuni? Find trouble for myself? Lu Zijuan. That was really what he was thinking. Gu Xingyin sneered, Master Lu, you don't have to be narcissistic. Our previous engagement was set by the elders. You're tired of me. In fact, I'm also annoyed when I look at you. Whether you like Lu Yuni or Little Peach, it has nothing to do with me. I came to Yunshi class today simply to watch a show. Isn't an actor singing for people to pay money to watch? Chapter 556. Hearing this, Lu Zijuan was furious. How can you insult Yuni like this? Gu Xingyin frowned and took 2 steps back. She looked at Lu Zijuan with disgust. Don't you know that you should lower your voice when talking to a lady? Where is your gentlemanly manner? Lu Zijuan, he felt that it was tiring to talk to Yan Ruohua now. What was the point? Was it the time to talk about gentlemanly manner? Gu Xingyin thought that she had made it very clear, but some people just didn't give up. Is there anything wrong with what I said? Gu Xingyin asked. Lu Zijuan said subconsciously, you said that Yuni was an actress. Oh. Gu Xingyin's face was cold. Go to Yunsheng and ask someone who is the most famous actress in Yunsheng. See if there is a second answer besides Lu Yuni. Lu Zijuan was choked by her for a long time and couldn't speak for a long time. He said hot-headedly, even if others say that about her, you can't say that. Gu Xingyin, she looked at Lu Zijuan with a very gentle look. It was so gentle that it could make people mad. Lu Zijuan suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. Sure enough, he heard her say, Lu Zijuan, if you are sick in the head, remember to take medicine in time. Don't give up treatment. This woman. She actually said that he was sick. Lu Zijuan's face turned red, but he, who claimed to have received a new education, told himself that he couldn't yell at a woman. Gu Xingyin didn't want to continue talking with such a moron. She said lazily, Lu Zijuan, I'll say it for the last time. I, Yan Ruohua, don't have any feelings for you, Lu Zijuan. Please don't feel good about yourself. I'm not in the mood to make trouble for your lover. You can rest assured. Finally, please don't come to me again. Even if we meet in Yuncheng, let's be strangers who don't know each other. Lu Zijuan's face turned green and white. This woman, it was clearly him who looked down on her, but why was her expression and tone full of disdain towards him? What else did he want? Gu Xingyin interrupted him. Don't talk to me anymore. Otherwise, I will think that you still have feelings for me. I refuse to accept it. Lu Zijuan swallowed the words he was about to say and glared at Gu Xingyin. Why was she such a shameless woman? Gu Xingyin smiled with satisfaction. Very good, that's it. Young Master Lu, goodbye. Ah no, I hope that we will never meet again in this life. She was in a good mood after making Lu Zijuan speechless. Master and servant left the theater. After a long time, Xiao Xiao could not help but laugh. Miss, you're really amazing. She looked at Gu Xingyin with eyes full of admiration. Miss was right to leave the Lu family. In the past, when Miss was still the young madam of the Lu family, she looked indifferent every day. She didn't look happy at all and didn't like to talk. She was like a beauty made of wood. How lively Miss was now. Xiao Xiao liked this kind of Miss. She felt that Miss was just like a new life after leaving the Lu family. Gu Xingyin smiled slightly. There's nothing amazing about it. Some people, if you take them seriously, they can go to heaven. If you humiliate them, they will be honest. To put it simply, they need to be taught a lesson. Lu Zijuan was a typical example. Xiao Xiao felt as if the door of a new world had been opened for her. She felt that she admired her Miss more and more. Chapter 557. As Huang Fuqi looked at the information, it was as if he could see that person's dignified and virtuous face in his mind. He couldn't help but laugh softly, but it scared the adjutant beside him. What happened? The young commander actually laughed. More importantly, he actually laughed so gently. In his limited memory, the last time the young commander laughed like this was when he wiped out an entire group of bandits in Yunation. The adjutant couldn't help but shudder and didn't dare to think about it any further. Gu Xingyin's life had gradually gotten on track. Although she didn't show her design drawings in Yunqing daily now, she slowly developed new tricks. In addition to the article about how women should know how to treat themselves well, she slowly began to share her dressing style, makeup tips, and so on. Yunqing Daily even opened a separate page for her called, Miss Lin Jinka Teaches You How to Be a Good Woman. The effect was very obvious. On the small page below Yunqing Daily, some letters of gratitude began to appear one after another. Some women thanked Lin Jinka for helping them find confidence, some thanked her for giving them courage to leave an unhappy marriage, and some people directly became fans of Lin Jinka. They admired her for her erudition, her independence and her thinking, or simply adored her unique gift for beauty. Biyao Cloth House also made a lot of money because it was Lin Jinka's only business partner. It wasn't that there weren't any jealous people who had designs on Lin Jinka or Biyao Cloth House, but those people often didn't make a move before their own businesses ran into all kinds of problems. They couldn't even take care of themselves. After a few more visits, those people all knew that there was probably a big shot looking after Biyao Cloth House, so they gave up on this idea. Shen Yuanxing was prepared to face all kinds of accidents, but nothing had ever happened to Biyao Cloth House. He also attributed this to Gu Xingyin. This Miss Yen was probably not as simple as she appeared to be. If he really put it that way, he wasn't wrong. A certain man really looked after Biyao Cloth House because of Gu Xingyin. However, he never talked about these things. If it wasn't for the system, Gu Xingyin wouldn't even know about it. Every month, no matter how many new clothes were produced, it was never enough. The clothes designed by Lin Jinka seemed to have become a weather vane for women in Yuncheng. It seemed that if they didn't have a piece of clothing designed by Lin Jinka, they would feel embarrassed to go out and visit their relatives and friends. Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin didn't know until recently that the famous Lin Jianren was Lin Luoran. The most fashionable clothes worn by women outside were all designed by Lin Luoran. Both Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin are very proud, but they keep Miss Lin's words in mind. No one can tell this secret to others. I know. I've heard of a drama before. It's about a man who was too outstanding and was hated by his neighbor. He got up in the middle of the night and secretly harmed his neighbor. Don't worry, miss, we won't tell anyone. Xiao Xiao patted her chest and nodded. Mrs. Lin can't help but reach out her hand and hit Lin Luoran's forehead heavily. You wicked girl, what are you talking about? Aren't you afraid of bad luck? Xiao Xiao hurriedly spat a few times on the ground. Bah. Spit out all the bad luck. Gu Shengyin had a premonition that things would not go so smoothly for her. As expected. Chapter 558. The Yan family came to the door. It was Yan Ruohua's father's birthday, and he sent someone to Yunqing to deliver a letter to Yan Ruohua. Only then did he know that Yan Ruohua had divorced the young master of the Lu family a few months ago. This was big news. The servant of the Yan family didn't even have time to drink tea. He hurried back to the Yan family to report the news to the master and madam. This was terrible. The master of the Yan family was furious and hurriedly sent someone to look for Yan Ruohua in Yunqing. Gu Shengyin couldn't hide her whereabouts and was found by an old servant of the Yan family. Miss, the master asks you to go home. The old servant looked at Gu Shengyin in amazement. He had served the Yan family for 20 years. It could be said that he had watched Yan Ruohua grow up and get married. He knew Yan Ruohua's character very well. How could she have such a lively temperament? He had never seen the style of the clothes and jewelry she was wearing. They were fresh and beautiful. Yan Ruohua looked more dazzling and beautiful than before after the divorce. He didn't know what Yan Ruohua had experienced in the Lu family. She actually became like this. Gu Shengyin sighed in her heart. She really didn't want to go back to Yan Ruohua's home. But obviously, she couldn't refuse at all now. Mrs. Zhang, wait a moment. Let me tidy up. Gu Shengyin asked Xiao Xiao to go out and inform Mr. Shen. When Shen Yuanqing heard this, he immediately sent a few capable servants over. They were all clean and honest. Gu Shengyin asked Mrs. Lin to put away the valuable things and lock them. She also kept the key close to her. Those people were guarding the courtyard for her during this period of time. Gu Shengyin took Mrs. Lin and Xiao Xiao back to the Yan family in Xianping City by car. There was a big difference between Xianping City and Yunqing. Gu Shengyin looked out all the way. The clothes of the people here were not like those in Yunqing. They were still the same as in the previous dynasty. The men wore long gowns, and most of the women wore their hair in a bun. They wore big, fat, and dull dresses. Even when they went out, they mostly used horse-drawn carriages, unlike in Yun City, where rickshaws were the majority. Those with better conditions even took cars. This was an old city that had not yet been affected by the reforms outside. Young miss, we're here. Gu Shengyin alighted from the carriage and entered the Yan family's mansion. As soon as she entered the residence, she felt as if there was an oppressive aura pressing down on her, making it hard for her to breathe. Gu Shengyin knew that this was a conditioned reflex of Yan Ruohua's body towards the house. In the 16 years before Yan Ruohua got married, the impression that this mansion gave her was that it was decaying, huge, old, and terrifying. It was like an old beast that was about to die, but it still wanted to suppress the people in its territory before it died. The father and mother of this body were waiting for her in the hall. Greetings, father and mother. Gu Shengyin went in and bowed. Kneel down. The old man sitting on the main seat didn't even look at her and shouted sternly. Sure enough. Gu Shengyin didn't kneel down. Instead, she looked up at him. This old man was wearing a dark red long gown with a black skullcap on his head. There was a long scar between his eyebrows, which added a bit of hostility. On the thumb of his left hand, there was a green thumb ring. This was a typical image of a feudal patriarch. Seeing that Gu Shengyin didn't follow his order, Master Yan finally turned his eyes to his rebellious daughter. Evil creature. You've been out for a few years. Have you forgotten the basic etiquette? Chapter 559. Gu Xingyin looked at old Master Yen calmly. After the previous dynasty was overthrown, kneeling was abolished. Father, where are the rules you're talking about? Old Master Yen raised his hand and swept the cup in his hand to the ground. The tea splashed on Gu Xingyin's skirt. What a pity, she thought. This was one of her favorite dresses. Old Master Yen acted as if he had never known this daughter of his. Look at what you've become. After going out for a few years, you think you've grown up and don't even recognize your father, right? No wonder the Lu family despises you. Gu Xingyin sneered in her heart. His own daughter was bullied by her husband's family, but the first person he blamed was his daughter. In old Master Yan's heart, if a woman was disliked by her husband, then it must be her own fault. She had already expected what would happen when she returned home. This was also the reason why she was unwilling to return to the Yen family after divorcing Lu Zijuan. Yen Ruohua was willing to tolerate it back then, but Gu Xingyin was unwilling. She looked straight at old Master Yen. Father, I married into the Lu family for 2 years and have been a virtuous wife according to your teachings. I didn't dare to do anything that crossed the line. I didn't even dare to announce that I had studied. But do you know what I got in return? 2 years. For 2 whole years, Lu Zijuan never stepped into my room. I've been married to him for 2 years and the number of times we've met can be counted. The most recent time we met was when he took a fancy to an actress and asked me to give her a seat. What did I do wrong? There was nothing wrong at all. He didn't even give me the most basic dignity. In the Lu family, even a servant secretly wanted to laugh at me. Gu Xingyin said the last sentence calmly. Father, what do you think I should do for the best? Old Master Yen had already stood up in anger because of her words. He had never been disobeyed like this before. He pointed a trembling finger at Gu Xingyin for a long time, unable to speak. Madame Yen quickly stood up to pat him on the back, but was pushed aside by him. Get lost. Look at your good daughter. Madame Yen looked to be no more than 40 years old. Her eyes were gentle and timid, and it seemed that she had been a beauty when she was younger. Yen Ruohua's looks were inherited from her. She was someone who didn't have her own opinions. After she got married, she relied on her husband to survive. If old Master Yen told her to go east, she definitely wouldn't dare to go west. Now that she was so embarrassed in front of her daughter, she felt ashamed, but more than that, she was worried about her daughter. Ruohua, don't make your father angry. Quickly apologize to him. Gu Xingyin could not get angry with her. This woman had been educated since she was a child. She had experienced such an environment, so she had developed a cowardly personality. Gu Xingyin lowered her eyes. I don't know what I did wrong. Please tell me, mother. This. Madame Yen was speechless. When she saw that her husband was angry, apologizing and admitting her mistake had already become her habit. She had never thought about whether she needed to apologize or why she needed to apologize. It was really pitiful to live so humbly. At this moment, old Master Yen calmed down and swept his sword-like gaze at Gu Xingyin. If you really want to save face, you should have killed yourself in the Lu family's house when they wanted to divorce you. You could have also earned a chastity memorial arch for our Yen family's girls. Chapter 560. Madame Yen was startled by this sentence. Gu Xingyin's heart was completely cold. In old Master Yan's eyes, this married daughter of his was like water that had been poured out. Her life and death had nothing to do with the Yen family. Her only use was whether she could bring benefits to the Yen family. Now, the divorced, Yen Ruohua was an existence that brought shame to the family in his eyes. It would be best if she died completely and ended all troubles. She sneered and said, then I'll really have to disappoint you. You treat my life as an ant, but I cherish it very much. Get out of here. Old Master Yen was furious. Gu Xingyin left slowly. After all, Yen Ruohua was still the eldest daughter of the Yen family. Her courtyard was still there. Mrs. Lin had been waiting outside anxiously. When she saw Gu Xingyin come out, she quickly came over. He hurriedly came forward and asked, "Miss, are you all right? Did old master make things difficult for you? If it doesn't work out, we can go back to Yuncheng." She knew what kind of person old master Yen was. Her miss had just gone in, so she definitely wouldn't be treated well. Gu Xingyin smiled and shook her head. "It's nothing serious. It's just as I expected. Let's go, Mrs. Lin. It's been a long journey. Let's go and have a good rest." In the evening, Madame Yen came to Gu Xingyin's room. "Damn it, Ruohua." She began to cry as soon as she entered the room. She cried and talked about her poor daughter. Gu Xingyin was really helpless against this woman. Unlike old Master Yen, who only cared about the family and herself, Madame Yen really loved her only daughter. Gu Xingyin knew that in Yen Ruohua's life, the person who treated her the best was her mother. It was just that Madame Yen was too cowardly. She didn't dare to resist old Master Yen. When her daughter was imprisoned in the courtyard, she cried secretly every time and brought her things in private. However, she never dared to ask old Master Yen to let Ruohua out. Gu Xingyin listened to her crying for a long time without any intention of stopping. She couldn't help but say, "Mother, don't cry. I don't feel that my life is hard at all. I'm living a much better life than I was in the Lu family." Madame Yen didn't believe her at all. "You're a girl. How can you have a good life outside?" Her thoughts were still stuck in her own era, or rather, she imagined her daughter to be someone like herself. Gu Xingyin handed her a handkerchief to wipe her tears and said, "Look at me carefully, mother. Do you think I look like I'm not doing well?" Madame Yen quickly wiped her tears. She hadn't looked at Ruohua in detail yet. The room was lit by an old-fashioned oil lamp, so it was hard to see clearly. However, Madame Yen could still see that her daughter's complexion was very good, and the skin on her hands was also very delicate. It was obvious that she had never suffered before. Moreover, her daughter seemed to be different from before. Madame Yen couldn't quite put her finger on it. Her eyes were brighter, and she seemed to have become prettier. Gu Xingyin tries to brainwash her, "Mom, you don't know. Now in Yuncheng, many women work outside and earn as much as men. They can live very freely by themselves." Madame Yen refutes her, "You're talking nonsense again. Women should marry into a good family and honestly help their husbands and children. It's men's business to work outside and earn money." As she spoke, she remembered that her daughter had nothing to do with the Lu family now. The tears that she had stopped with great difficulty fell down again. Gu Xingyin was speechless. There was really no way to communicate with people with different views. Chapter 561. Gu Xingyin finally coaxed Mrs. Yen to believe that she didn't suffer outside. After coaxing her to have a good rest, Mrs. Yen felt that it was more tiring than anything else. The next day, before dawn, someone knocked on the door. Mrs. Lin walked to Gu Xingyin's bed. Looking at her miss who was still in a daze, she felt a little distressed. But Master was looking for her, so she had to wake Gu Xingyin up. "Miss, wake up. Master sent someone to look for you." Gu Xingyin got up helplessly. She put on her clothes and tidied up. When she went out of the yard, there was just a trace of light in the sky. There was no light in the hall. It was dark. With the old furniture and utensils inside, there was a strange sense of gloominess. Although Gu Xingyin was not afraid of these, she still woke up. She felt a little strange. Yesterday, Master Yen wished that he didn't have this daughter and never saw her again. Why did he send someone to look for her so early today? She bowed obediently and stood aside, waiting for him to explain the purpose of his visit. Master Yen originally wanted to ignore his daughter, but after waiting for a long time, he found that she was standing calmly. There was no anxiety or hesitation on her face. On the contrary, he was angry. "I found a good marriage for you. The other party's family is not worse than the Lu family. They don't mind that you are remarrying. Go to Yuncheng tomorrow to pack your dowry and bring it back. Get ready to get married." Master Yen said his decision. "What?" Gu Xingyin looked up in surprise. She had just divorced and returned home yesterday. Today, he found a marriage for her. With Master Yan's words yesterday, she didn't believe that this marriage would be good at all. Father, I don't want to get married now. Gu Xingyin replied and asked the system to check who Master Yan had been in contact with recently. Ridiculous. Hearing her words, Master Yan was furious again. You don't want to get married just because you say so? You're a woman living outside alone. If others find out, who knows how they'll gossip about our Yan family. Let me tell you, you either get married obediently or quickly kill yourself with the 3-foot white silk. Don't live in this world and embarrass our Yan family. At this time, the system's results came out. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but sneer in her heart. This was indeed a good family. That old man already had grandchildren who could walk. He had 2 sons and 4 daughters. The youngest one was only 2 years older than Yan Ruohua. She was marrying over to be his mother and grandmother. Old Master Yan did not treat Yan Ruohua as a daughter at all. Since that's the case, there's no need to give you any face. Gu Xingyin sneered, Li family, right? I remember that Master Li is a few years older than you, right? If I divorced my husband's family, wouldn't it be embarrassing for you and old Master Li to become your son-in-law? The face of the Yan family is actually grown on your mouth, right? Old Master Yan was so angry that his face turned blue. His hands trembled violently as he pointed at Gu Xingyin. You, get out of here. Gu Xingyin continued his words. Don't be angry and hurt your health. Otherwise, I'll be accused of being unfilial. I'll be obedient and get out. If you don't like it, I can get out of here and go back to Yincheng. I promise that I won't come back for the rest of my life and make you upset. Chapter 562. She looked at old Master Yan as if she could faint in an instant. However, reality proved that this old man's body was very strong. He suddenly calmed down and looked at Gu Xingyin, who hadn't left yet, and said coldly. You're bold now and your wings have hardened. You dare to be stubborn with me. I'll only ask you one thing. Do you still care about your mother? Gu Xingyin's expression turned cold. Father, what do you mean? Old Master Yan snorted. She raised such an unfilial thing like you. Just for this reason alone, I can divorce her. Gu Xingyin seemed to have met old Master Yan for the first time. She said in disbelief, You're actually threatening me with my mother? Her gaze turned completely cold. My mother entered the Yan family at the age of 14 and married you for more than 20 years. She has been diligently taking care of the backyard for you. Do you really not cherish the friendship of more than 20 years? Old Master Yan snorted and didn't say anything. What do you want me to do? Gu Xingyin's eyebrows suddenly moved, and her tone softened. Old Master Yan's face revealed a smug expression. No matter how unruly this eldest daughter was, she still had to be obedient in his hands. He raised his hand and stroked his goatee. In a month, someone from the Li family will come with betrothal gifts and marry you. What if I don't want to marry? Old Master Yan's voice was gloomy. Then wait for your mother to be kicked out by me with a divorce letter. Gu Xingyin didn't reply, but Madame Yan's voice sounded. It turns out that I've served old master so carefully for so many years, and all I got was my only daughter being forced to marry into that cannibalistic place. Can I be divorced so easily? Madame Yan slowly walked in from outside the door. She had heard that her daughter had been called in by old master, so she was worried and hurriedly packed and changed her clothes before rushing over. She happened to hear the conversation between the father and daughter. Gu Xingyin saw that her face was covered in tears. Perhaps she was crying for herself, or perhaps for her daughter. Being questioned like this, old Master Yan's expression became somewhat unsightly. He angrily rebuked, Woman, what do you know? Hurry up and get down. Madame Yan, who had always been obedient to him, didn't listen to him this time. Instead, she said faintly, I only have one child, Ruohua. She is my lifeblood. All these years, I didn't dare to overstep my boundaries at all. I racked my brains for the Yan family. It is so that my Ruohua can marry into a good family and have someone to rely on in her family. She looked at old Master Yen, her gaze causing him to not dare to look straight at her. But now, you want my Ruohua to marry into that kind of family. You're forcing her to die. Gu Xingyin saw that she was a little emotional, and quickly comforted her. Mother, don't be excited, don't worry, I won't marry. Ruohua will be fine. He will always accompany mother. Madame Yen looked at her daughter, who was comforting her worriedly. Then, she looked at old Master Yen, who was looking at her coldly. She felt something in her heart that wanted to be vented. Even if I die, I don't want my Ruohua to marry into the Li family. Old master, didn't you want to divorce your wife? Then divorce her. Good, good, good. You two, mother and daughter, are going to turn the sky upside down for me? If you want me to divorce my wife, I'll fulfill your wish. Old Master Yan's face was hurt by his first wife, and anger surged in his heart. Bring me a pen and paper. Chapter 563. After he shouted, he realized that no one had moved. In order to talk to Gu Xingyin, he had sent all the servants out. Naturally, no one would be able to hear him at this moment. A trace of awkwardness flashed across old Master Yan's face. Gu Xingyin sneered. There's no need to trouble father with the divorce papers. We're already part of the Republican Alliance. What divorce papers are there? If father really doesn't want to live with my mother anymore, just sign the divorce papers. From then on, the two of us will have nothing to do with each other. Ruohua. Madame Yen pulled Gu Xingyin's sleeve uneasily. Saying those words to old Master Yen was already the boldest thing she had ever done in her life. How could a person like her dare to think about marriage? Gu Xingyin couldn't explain anything to her. Madame Yen was only in her 30s or 40s. If this was in the future, many people wouldn't be married. Old Master Yen sneered. Divorce? Our ancestors have set the rules for thousands of years. There's no such thing as a divorce. Gu Xingyin said sternly, the previous dynasty has already fallen. If father says something like this again, you'll have to worry about people from Xianping City's security department. When old Master Yen heard the name of the security department, a trace of fear flashed through his eyes. He forced himself to keep up appearances. If Madame Zhao wants a divorce, that's fine. For so many years, she's been using my Zhao family's money. Her dowry was almost all given to you as a dowry. As long as you two are willing to leave the marriage with nothing, I can agree to your request. Also, Yen Ruohua, you can ask to be removed from the clan. Madame Yen looked at this person in disbelief. She didn't think that he would be so heartless after being married for more than 20 years. Removing Ruohua from the clan meant that she could no longer receive the protection of the Yen clan. After old Master Yen passed away, Yen Ruohua wouldn't be able to receive any of the Yen clan's wealth. All right. Gu Xingyin agreed. I don't want anything from the Yen clan. It was already a pleasant surprise to be able to pull Madame Yen out of this pit of fire. She wasn't greedy for the Yen clan's little wealth. Now, the benefits that White Cloud Cloth Store could bring her were beyond the imagination of the Yen family. Old Master Yen looked at them coldly. I hope you won't regret it. Gu Xingyin replied bluntly, don't worry, old Master Yen. Even if I, Gu Xingyin, fall in the future, I will never step into the Yen family again. She supported her mother out of the door. As soon as she stepped out of the door, Madame Yan's body, which had been holding on for a long time, went limp. Fortunately, Gu Xingyin supported her. Mother's Ruohua, what are we going to do in the future? She was now worried about the future of mother and daughter. It doesn't matter, mother. I'll take care of you in the future. Gu Xingyin comforted her. Madame Yen was still worried. She couldn't imagine what kind of life she would have in the future. However, although she was hesitant, she did not regret it. At the very least, her Ruohua would not have to marry into such a family and be trampled upon by others. Gu Xingyin returns to her courtyard. She immediately instructs Mama Lin to find the elders of the Yen clan. She smiles and goes to pack her things. The two of them are so scared that they quickly ask what happened. Gu Shengyin briefly explains what happened. Xiao Xiao is already filled with righteous indignation. Even Mama Lin can't help but complain that old Master Yen is too heartless. Mama Lin doesn't dare to delay Gu Shengyin's order. She quickly goes to find the elders of the Yen clan. Madame Yen is a little confused. Why do you ask Mama Lin to find the elders of the Yen clan? Gu Shengyin personally fetches water for her mother to wash her face. Of course, to be a witness. She also wants to leave a backup plan. If old Master Yen finds out what she did in the future, it will be troublesome if he uses the relationship between her parents and the Yen clan to blackmail her. It's better to cut her in half. Chapter 564. Under the witness of the elders of the Yen family, Madame Yen and old Master Yen signed the divorce agreement. Gu Shengyin also personally signed a letter, stating that she would no longer have anything to do with the Yen family in the future. Old Master Yen also signed his name on it. Fortunately, Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin were both part of Gu Shengyin's dowry at the time, so their marriage contracts were all in Gu Shengyin's hands. They could directly go with Gu Shengyin. Under the supervision of the two old servants sent by old Master Yen, Madame Yen. No, she should be called Madame Zhao now. Under the supervision of the two old servants sent by old Master Yen, she only brought 2 sets of clothes with her. Even the jewelry on her body was removed completely before she left the house. When she stepped out of the Yen family's mansion, Zhao Shi's body trembled. She didn't know how long it had been since she stepped out of this door. To her, the outside of the door was like another world. Gu Shengyin understood her thoughts. Most of the time, it wasn't the outside world that was scary, but the world in her own heart that she imagined for herself most of the time. It wasn't this door that locked them in, but herself. A carriage was already parked outside the door. Xiao Xiao had called for it in advance. Gu Shengyin helped Zhao Shi into the carriage. They went to the platform and bought tickets to Yuncheng. It was Zhao Shi's first time going to a place so far away. It was also her first time taking a train. It was her first time sitting in the same space with so many strangers. All of this was so unfamiliar to her, and it also scared her. Zhao Shi wasn't sure if she would dare to say those words again if she was given another chance. However, she looked up at her daughter. Her Ruohua was sitting so vividly beside her. No matter what price she had to pay, it was all worth it. After arriving at Yuncheng, Zhao Shi's eyes couldn't turn away. There were all kinds of people on the streets here. She even saw people with fair skin and golden hair. Many women were wearing clothes that she had never seen before. They had a fragrance on their bodies as they walked past her. There were also many people sitting in small cars that were pulled by people. Gu Shengyin took her back to the rented courtyard. "This is where you live, Ruohua?" Zhao Shi asked in surprise. It was different from the standard old-style residence of the Yen clan. There were already many new things in this small courtyard. Especially after Gu Shengyin's arrival, for the sake of comfort, after obtaining the consent of the owner of the hospital, he installed transparent glass windows, installed curtains with his own design, and placed a soft sofa in the room. Whether it was the glass, the sofa, or the overhead light, Mrs. Zhao had never seen them before. What she had seen and heard in the past half a day had completely overturned what she had known for the past 30 years. The rooms were all ready-made. While Madame Zhao was bathing, she stared at the bathtub for a long time in amazement. The Yen family has never seen these before. She suddenly felt a secret delight in her heart. Even old Master Yen had never seen these things before. He thought that he and Ruohua would not have a good life after coming out. Who knew that life here was much better than Xianping City? But she also knew that these things were definitely not something that ordinary people could afford to enjoy. At night, after she finished washing up, she wore the pajamas that Gu Shengyin gave her. After hesitating for a long time, she finally pulled Gu Shengyin and quietly asked, "Living in a place like this must cost a lot of money, right? We're outside now, so it's better to save some money." Chapter 565. Gu Shengyin laughs, "Mom, don't worry. I'm a big boss now. It's nothing. Zhao doesn't believe it. What big boss? You're a girl, Gu Xingyin interrupts her. I'll take you to buy clothes tomorrow. You'll know then. Zhao still wants to say something, but Gu Xingyin hurriedly says, "Oh, I'm so tired today. I'm so tired." Zhao hurriedly says, "Then have a good rest." Gu Xingyin chuckles and quickly says, "Mom, you should also have a good rest." Zhao tosses and turns in bed for half a night without falling asleep. She still feels a little unreal in her heart. Did she just leave the Yan family like this? Did she come to such a strange place? For the first time, she doesn't have to wash feet and drink tea at night. She doesn't have to sleep in her clothes because she is afraid that Master Yan will drink something or get up at night. Zhao gets up early as usual in the morning. When she looks around, she remembers that she doesn't have to do anything. She simply gets up. Mrs. Lin is preparing breakfast. When she sees her, she smiles and says, "Mrs. Lin, you're awake. You can take a walk in the yard first. Breakfast will be ready soon." She used to call this breakfast. Breakfast is a new word she has learned recently. Zhao sure walked around the courtyard. Gu Xingyin had bought a few pots of flowers and placed them here. They were all blooming well. Birds were chirping in the treetops, and the footsteps of pedestrians could be heard outside the courtyard. Occasionally, a hawker would yell at the top of his lungs. This is a place full of vitality. When she enters the door, Gu Xingyin has already got up. Breakfast is millet porridge. Mrs. Lin steamed 2 steamers of steamed buns with meat fillings. In addition, there are some homemade pickles in a small plate. There is also a plate of snacks. It's very simple, but Zhao is very satisfied. She doesn't have to serve the other person. When he is happy, she sits down to eat the half-cold food. After dinner, Gu Xingyin takes Zhao to buy clothes. Gu Xingyin stops her. "Mom, didn't you see what people were wearing on the street before? If you look like this, we won't even wear old ladies anymore." Zhao sure laughed. "Aren't I just an old lady?" Gu Xingyin took her hand. "How old are you?" "You're still very young." Madame Zhao couldn't argue with her. In addition, she was really tempted by the clothes of the women she saw earlier, so Gu Xingyin took her out. Gu Xingyin took Zhao Shi directly to the largest clothing store in Biyao Textiles. "Miss Yen." The shopkeeper was very enthusiastic when he saw Gu Xingyin. Shen Yuanxing and Madame Shen had personally brought Gu Xingyin here before. They had also said that this Miss Yen was a distinguished guest of White Cloud Cloth Store and that she could just take whatever she liked. Gu Xingyin looked at Madame Zhao. "I brought my mother to see the clothes. You do what you need to do." There were still many customers in the shop looking at the clothes. Madame Zhao didn't know how to choose at all. She looked at her daughter for help. Gu Xingyin carefully glanced around the shelves and took down 2 sets of dresses. One was light blue, and the other was light purple. Madame Zhao's skin was very white. This color was just right. There was a place in the store for trying on clothes, but Gu Xingyin didn't see Madame Zhao go out for a long time. She felt that something was wrong, so she walked in and called softly. After a while, she heard Madame Zhao's shy voice. "How can I wear these clothes out?" Chapter 566. Gu Xingyin couldn't help laughing. She persuaded Zhao to come out. When she saw Zhao Shi, for a moment, her heart even surged with a kind of shock. Madame Zhao was only in her 30s, but she used to always wear big and old-fashioned clothes, which made people feel that she had aged a lot. But when she changed into the Cheongsam, Gu Xingyin realized that her mother had such a good figure. Her face was gentle, her skin was white, and her figure was exquisite. Wearing such a light blue Cheongsam, people would believe that she was in her 30s when she went out. "Mother, you are so beautiful." Gu Xingyin praised sincerely. Zhao was still a little embarrassed. When she heard Gu Xingyin's words, her face turned red. She said angrily, "You are old. Don't talk about beauty." At this time, another customer in the shop said to the waiter, "Do you have any more of the Cheongsam you are wearing? Give me a set." The woman who spoke looked at Zhao Shi with admiration in her eyes. Gu Xingyin said with a smile, "Look, others also think it is beautiful." Zhao lowered her head shyly, but she was happy in her heart. There was no woman who didn't care about her appearance. There was no woman who didn't like being praised, especially from strangers. Gu Xingyin generously took Mrs. Zhao around Yin City. When they came back, not only Mrs. Lin, but also Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin's hands were full of new things. Zhao Shi had completely changed into a different person from the inside out. From clothes to jewelry to shoes, Gu Xingyin bought several sets of everything for her mother. Zhao complained that her daughter was too extravagant, but she couldn't hide the smile on her face. On the third day, Gu Xingyin took Zhao to visit Shen Yuanxing and his wife. She told Zhao Shi that the other party was her business partner. Looking at the Western-style house of Shen's family, there were gorgeous chandeliers on the ceiling, and there was even a small fountain in the garden. All of these showed the wealth of the owner. Only then did Madame Zhao understand what her daughter meant when she said that she was also a boss. The Shen family was so polite to Gu Xingyin that they were almost cautious. Once again, she had a new understanding of her daughter. It turned out that Ruohua had already become such an outstanding woman without her knowing anything. No wonder she was so confident when facing the Yen family. No wonder she gave up on the Yen family's assets without hesitation. Lady Zhao didn't know what to say. She originally thought that a woman who married into a good family would be the best ending for her husband and children. But now, her understanding became even more vague. She didn't need to carefully serve others and didn't need to rely on her husband's family to live. Her Ruohua could also live well. Mrs. Shen was very friendly when she heard that she was Gu Xingyin's mother. After all, Lady Zhao was the wife of a noble family. Although she might not have much knowledge, her manners were excellent. This made Lady Shen even more curious about Gu Xingyin's identity. The meeting this time allowed Zhao Shi to be completely at ease. The worries in her heart were also put down. She and Lady Shen had become good friends. Although there was no lack of Lady Shen's intention to befriend her, Lady Zhao had a good personality. After getting along with her for a long time, very few people could dislike her. A month later, Lady Zhao was already able to dress up fashionably and beautifully and go shopping with Lady Shen. Especially after knowing that her daughter was the guest in the forest who was especially popular with women in Yunsheng and the owner of Baiyun Cloth Company, she didn't hesitate to spend money. Women, as long as there was a change in their mindset, everything would slowly change for the better. Chapter 567. Since Mrs. Shen was her old friend, Zhao was not so clingy to her daughter. Today, she made an appointment with Mrs. Shen to watch the opera. Gu Xingyin was bored at home alone. She just heard that there was a new circus in the south of the city, so she planned to take a look. Xiao Xiao went to Baiyun Textiles to get the new clothes samples today. Mrs. Lin stayed at home to look after the house, so Gu Xingyin had to go alone. The circus was not bad. It would be better if there was no later episode. Gu Xingyin looked at a group of people in black who suddenly appeared. Some were holding guns in their hands. Of course, most of them were holding knives or iron rods. Then, the handsome young man who was performing the trapeze in the circus just now didn't know where he hid his weapon. The two sides began to fight directly. The people who came to watch the show were the ones who suffered. Unfortunately, Gu Xingyin was one of these people. However, compared to those people who were so scared that they fainted directly, Gu Xingyin was a little calmer. This kind of fight was usually between the two sides who had a grudge against each other. Basically, innocent people were rarely affected. Of course, the premise was that you didn't wander in the middle of the fight. Otherwise, swords and guns had no eyes. You would be a fool to bet your life on luck. The exit was blocked by a group of people. Gu Xingyin looked around and found a quiet corner with a big table as cover. It was a very safe place. She squatted down and was ready to wait for the storm to pass. However, it turned out that the seemingly safe place might not be so safe. A figure hit the table where Gu Xingyin was hiding with a bang. The table didn't break, but Gu Xingyin, who was hiding on the table, was exposed. The man in black obviously thought that Gu Xingyin was with the circus. He didn't even look and directly shot at her. Gu Xingyin's eyes turned cold. If she was an ordinary person, she would probably be seriously injured even if she didn't die. She nimbly rolled on the ground and dodged the bullet. What a waste of the clothes she had specially worn today. Her dodging attracted the attention of the group of black-clothed men. They were only suspicious at first, but now they were sure. Gu Xingyin hurriedly dodged the pursuing bullets and men in black. She was about to reach the door. Her arm was suddenly pulled by someone, and her whole body fell into a cold and hard embrace. At the same time, a large number of armed soldiers in military uniforms entered. Everyone, stop what you're doing. Violators will be executed on the spot. Someone fired a shot into the air. Everyone stopped what they were doing. You seem to get into trouble every time we meet. A cold voice rang in Gu Xingyin's ears. Huang Fuqi looked at the woman in his arms. She looked so small, but her eyes were calm and gentle. It was as if she was born to wear Su Xiu's clothes and sit in an exquisite attic to drink tea. Who would have thought that just a moment ago, she was still able to keep a straight face under the rain of bullets? Gu Xingyin blinked and blinked again. Then she asked in confusion, "Excuse me. Have we met before?" As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Xingyin felt the hand around her waist tighten, and the air around her turned cold. Huang Fuqi's adjutant automatically took 3 steps back. Very good, this woman doesn't remember me at all. Huang Fu Xiaoshui expressed that he had never enjoyed such treatment before. Gu Xingyin laughed in her heart. Who told you to pretend to be cold last time? I'll let you have a taste of being ignored. Chapter 568. The air froze in an instant. Except for Gu Xingyin, everyone looked at Huang Fuqi in fear. They were afraid that if they were not careful, he would get angry and they would be the ones to suffer. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Huang Fuqi held Gu Xingyin's waist with his right arm, bent down, and lifted her up with his left hand. Gu Xingyin was speechless. What are you doing? Gu Xingyin glared at him. Put me down. Huang Fuqi turned a deaf ear. Young Marshal Huang Fu, you're kidnapping an innocent woman. Gu Xingyin was furious. This man looked like a gentleman, but why did he look like a hooligan? Huang Fuqi stopped and lowered his head. The corners of his lips lifted slightly. Now you know who I am. Gu Xingyin was speechless. This man was not only a hooligan, but he was also narrow-minded. She struggled hard, but she couldn't break free. No matter how hard she tried, she still couldn't break free. Well, strength wasn't on the same level. Young Marshal Huang Fu, what are you trying to do? Huang Fuqi carried her all the way to the car, threw her into the trunk, closed the door, and got in himself. He did it in one go. I like you. Didn't you say so yourself? You're trying to steal me. The car skidded. Under young Marshal Huang Fu's cold gaze, the driver in front thought about how to report this news to the commander and madam as soon as possible. As for Gu Xingyin was dumbfounded. There was actually someone in this world who could say that he was trying to steal someone. She tried to reason with him. Young Marshal Huang Fu, listen to me. We were strangers before, Huang Fuqi said, not anymore. Gu Xingyin said, if I suddenly disappear, my family will be worried. Huang Fuqi said, don't worry, it won't take up much of your time. Gu Xingyin asked suspiciously, young Marshal Huang Fu, what are you trying to do? Huang Fuqi said, I'm taking you back to see my parents. Gu Xingyin was speechless. She looked down at her appearance. Her dress was dirty because it had been rolled on the ground earlier. Needless to say, her hair must be messy at this moment. She was going to see his parents with such an appearance? No, wasn't the point. He was just casually taking a woman whom he had only met twice to see his parents. This was too casual. Gu Xingyin said, young Marshal, this kind of thing requires a foundation of feelings. If you're just looking for a shield, I'm not suitable. Huang Fuqi turned his head and looked at her seriously. I have a lot of feelings for you. Except for you, no other woman can make me like this. Since I've taken a fancy to you, there's no other way. I have no intention of using you as a shield. This man's side profile was extremely handsome. When he spoke seriously, he could easily mesmerize all women. That was if they didn't hear him. Gu Xingyin chose to keep quiet because of her. In front of this man with the logic of a robber, anything she said was useless. The car drove into a Western-style building with a white carved fence. Huang Fuqi pulled Gu Xingyin into the house. A noblewoman in a navy blue dress was playing with a cat. When she saw Huang Fuqi and Gu Xingyin, she stood up in surprise. Tongfeng, who is this? Tongfeng was Huang Fuqi's courtesy name. The great bird rises with the wind one day and soars 90,000 miles into the sky. It was obvious that Marshal Huangfu had high hopes for his son. Gu Xingyin didn't need to think to know who this noblewoman was. She was dressed like this, and she even addressed Huang Fuqi as such. Huang Fuqi pulled Gu Xingyin forward and answered his mother's question. Your daughter-in-law. Chapter 569. As soon as he finished his words, the cat in his wife's hand screamed miserably and then struggled to jump out of her arms. The marshal's wife came to her senses. Looking at the white cat's fur in her hand, she realized that she had lost her composure. She looked at Gu Xingyin with a very strange expression. Gu Xingyin could feel that there was no malice in her eyes. It seemed that the marshal's wife saw that Gu Xingyin was a little uncomfortable. Looking at Gu Xingyin's embarrassed appearance, she understood. She looked at her son reproachfully. How could you let a girl make herself look like this? Then she looked at Gu Xingyin kindly. I'll ask someone to take you to change first. Gu Xingyin thanked her. Madame Huangfu asked the maids to prepare new clothes for her and took her to freshen up. After Gu Xingyin left, Madame Huangfu could not restrain the joy in her heart. She said to Huang Fuqi, which family is this girl from? How long have you known each other? Are you in love with each other? Huang Fuqi answered methodically, her name is Yan Ruahua. We have known each other for a few months. He directly avoided the latter question. The marshal's wife, who knew her son's character well, immediately knew that her son was still in love with her unrequited love. The marshal's wife became more interested in Gu Xingyin. Although her son was a little cold, no matter his family background or character, he was the most attractive girl. How could she not be moved? However, the marshal's wife muttered, her surname is Yan? There seems to be no rich family surnamed Yan in our Yuncheng. But she immediately felt relieved. We don't need a daughter-in-law from a noble family to keep our face. It's good enough that her family background is clean. It was not easy for Tongfeng to find a girl he liked. The marshal's wife was very pleased. However, the next second, she was shocked by her son's words. Huang Fuqi said, she was married before, but unfortunately, she met the wrong person. Now she has divorced. This. The marshal's wife frowned. Could it be that her son actually liked this kind of woman? It didn't matter if the daughter-in-law of the marshal's residence had a lower background, but she couldn't quite accept this woman who had been married before. In the hearts of all mothers in the world, their sons would always be the best. Even a fairy would be a match for them. What's more, their family's Tongfeng was top-notch in everything. How could the marshal's wife accept that he had fallen in love with a woman who had divorced him? Tongfeng, it is impossible for the marshal's mansion to accept a young madam who has remarried, the marshal's wife said to Huang Fuqi solemnly. Huang Fuqi's expression did not change. Then your son will not accept any other woman besides her. The marshal's wife was speechless. No one knew better than him how bad his son's temper was. It was exactly the same as a certain old man. If he had made up his mind, no one would be able to change his mind. That girl called Yan Ruahua, what kind of charm did she have to make her son fall in love with her so much? At this moment, Yan Ruahua had finished tidying up and was brought over by a maid. Greetings to the marshal's wife. The marshal's wife looked at her carefully and praised her in her heart. This girl's appearance, temperament, and etiquette were all good. It's the first time Tongfeng has brought a girl back. This old woman is very happy. Miss Yan, do you mind talking with me? Chapter 570. Huang Fuqi was chased out by his mother. The reason was that a man like him should not stand in the way when the women were chatting. Huang Fuqi knew that his mother wanted to know what kind of person Yan Ruohua was. Whether it was his mother's character or Gu Xingyin's character, there was nothing in this conversation that could worry him. After more than an hour, Huang Fuqi was called over by his mother. The first thing he saw was the commander's wife holding Gu Xingyin's hand intimately. The two of them seemed to be chatting happily. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He knew that as long as this woman was willing, she could easily win the favor of anyone. When the commander's wife saw him, she smiled and said, "It's getting late. You should take Ruohua home." She even started to address her as Ruohua. Huang Fuqi called for a car. When he left with Gu Xingyin, the commander's wife warmly invited Gu Xingyin to visit the next time. The two of them sat in the car in silence. Gu Xingyin saw that he was sitting upright and had no intention of speaking at all. She asked, "Aren't you curious about what your mother and I talked about?" Huang Fuqi glanced at her and said, "She will tell me when we get home." Gu Xingyin thought for a moment and said, "I have already made it clear to the commander's wife that you were just joking. She won't take it seriously." Huang Fuqi asked, "What did I say?" Gu Xingyin was speechless. He was pretending to be confused. She said angrily, "You said that I was her daughter-in-law." The driver in the front felt that he might not be able to live for long. It was not good to know too much about the handsome man's private matters. Huang Fuqi said indifferently, "I'm not joking." Gu Xingyin was furious. "Do you know who I am? What's the situation at home? What kind of experience have I had? This is not a child's play. Young Marshal, I still cherish my reputation very much." Huang Fuqi turned around and looked at her in confusion. "Why are you so angry?" Gu Xingyin looked into his eyes. He was not joking. He really did not understand. She felt that she could no longer communicate with this man. "I've said so much, but he didn't listen at all." At this moment, Huang Fuqi continued, "I wasn't lying to my mother. You will indeed be her daughter-in-law. The woman that I, Huang Fuqi, have taken a fancy to is destined to be mine. As for your question just now, I know that your name is Yan Ruohua. A few days ago, you severed ties with your family and got married once. 4 months ago, you divorced. I know all that. I don't care. If you want to take your time, that's fine. I can wait." Gu Xingyin was speechless. "Have you not considered the feelings of your family? How can the dignified commander-in-chief's residence accept a woman who has remarried?" Huang Fuqi frowned and looked at her. "You don't need to worry about these things. You just have to agree to marry me, and then wait happily to marry me. Of course, I will take care of everything else." In his mind, this was the only thing Gu Xingyin needed to do. As a man, how could he let his woman worry about anything else? Of course, what Huang Fu Shaoshui did not say was that even if Gu Xingyin did not agree, he would snatch her away. The men of the Huangfu family had never been gentlemen. Chapter 571. When Lady Zhao came back, she happened to see Huang Fuqi open the car door and let Gu Xingyin out. She was a little surprised by this scene. "Mother." Gu Xingyin called her. "Hey." Lady Zhao walked to her daughter, looked at Huang Fuqi, and asked politely, "This is?" "Hello, mother-in-law." Huang Fuqi bowed. "I'm Huang Fuqi." Lady Zhao was so shocked by this that she covered her mouth with a handkerchief. She had heard of Huang Fuqi's name after so many days in Yunsheng. How did her daughter provoke such a big shot? She looked at her daughter reflexively. How long had it been since they last met, and Ruohua had found her a son-in-law? Gu Xingyin shook her head helplessly. After all, it was related to her daughter. Although Huang Fuqi's aura was very scary, Lady Zhao still bravely put on a cold face. "Young Marshal Huangfu, please be careful with your words. After saying this, Lady Zhao's heart calmed down a lot. She continued, our Ruohua is a girl. If you speak like this, it's not good for her reputation. After saying this, she pulled Gu Xingyin behind her, as if she was worried that Huang Fuqi would get angry. Unexpectedly, Huang Fuqi nodded and apologized to her. I didn't think it through, Lady Zhao. I will send the betrothal gifts to Ruohua as soon as possible to confirm our relationship. After saying this, he nodded to the two of them, got in the car, and left. Lady Zhao pulled her daughter into the house in a trance. Tell me, what's the situation? Lady Zhao rarely acted like a mother. Gu Xingyin was also a little helpless. If it weren't for her, anyone would be confused about this matter. Huang Fuqi's character was unpredictable. If it were a real stranger with a strong temper, they might hate him. She sighed and told her about today's experience. So, today is only the second time you've met? Gu Xingyin nodded. Ruohua, you have to be careful. If you don't like young Marshal Mu, we won't marry him. At worst, we won't live in Yinsheng. Let's go to the south. Zhao comforted Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin felt warmth in her heart. In such a situation, if one had even the slightest bit of selfishness in their hearts, they would probably think that this was a joyous occasion. They would feel that being able to rely on the Huangfu clan was a great benefit. Zhao Shi simply asked if she was willing. When Gu Xingyin heard her words, she lowered her head and remained silent. After all, Madame Zhao was a woman. When she saw her daughter's reaction and recalled Huang Fuqi's appearance and character, what else did she not understand? In his daughter's heart, it wasn't as if she didn't have any thoughts about him, right? That's right, how many women would be able to resist such a man? Zhao Shi asked herself in her heart, if time could go back 20 years, she might also have a crush on him. Her daughter's reaction made Zhao Shi feel relieved, but she immediately began to worry for her. It was the Huangfu clan. It was not an ordinary large family, but the clan in charge of the entire 8 provinces in the northwest. If it had been in the previous dynasty, it would have been no problem for the Huangfu clan to sit on half of the country and be independent. With her daughter's ability, if it had been an ordinary family, she could have won a seat with her own ability. But if the Huangfu clan was not satisfied with her, she couldn't even find someone who could support her. Zhao Shi was very worried in her heart. The Huangfu clan. When Huang Fuqi returned home, he went straight to find his mother. Chapter 572. Marshal Huangfu also came back, and the two of them were sitting and chatting. Marshal Huangfu was a middle-aged man with a big belly. He always had a smile on his face and looked very kind. Of course, if you really thought that he was a kind person, you would be deceived. How could a man who could control hundreds of thousands of troops in the 8 provinces in the northwest be as kind as he looked? Tong Feng, you're back. Your mother just told me that you like a girl. Marshal Huangfu asked his son to sit down. Huang Fuqi nodded and turned to ask his mother, what did you talk about with her? Mrs. Marshall pushed a plate of peeled longans in front of him and said, nothing much. We just asked about her interests and hobbies. I like her personality. Huang Fuqi nodded and stopped talking. But Marshal Huang Fuqi said, son, I heard that the girl you like has been married before? My son is so outstanding. How can you marry a married woman? I don't agree. Huang Fuqi said indifferently, I want to marry her. It's none of my business whether you agree or not. Marshal Huang Fuqi was speechless. You've grown up. You don't even care about your father, do you? Huang Fuqi didn't speak. Marshal Huang Fuqi said angrily, is that woman really so good? Huang Fuqi nodded. In my heart, no one can compare to her. Marshal Huang Fuqi asked, it has to be her? Huang Fuqi nodded. It has to be her. Marshal Huang Fuqi changed the topic. But I heard from your mother that she didn't agree with you. Huang Fuqi said. It doesn't matter. She has to marry me anyway. Marshal Huang Fuqi slapped the table. Good. I like your domineering temperament. You're exactly the same as me back then. As soon as he finished speaking, he received a warning look from Mrs. Marshal Huang Fuqi, so he quickly changed his tone. It's not that easy to enter the door of my marshal's mansion. Huang Fuqi knew what his parents were doing. He said, "What do you want?" Marshal Huang Fuqi looked at Mrs. Marshal Huang Fuqi. Mrs. Marshal Huang Fuqi said, "It's your own business to marry a wife, but you will be the head of the Huangfu family in the future. Your wife will be the madam of the Huangfu family. She represents the face of the Huangfu family. Of course, let's not talk about these empty words first. Your wife, she has to be able to convince the masses, right? In the future, she had to have enough confidence in front of those madams in Yin City, right? Can Miss Yen do all this?" Huang Fuqi looked at his mother in confusion. "She's my wife. Who dares to gossip about her?" Madame Huangfu put down the teacup in her hand. "Tong Feng, just because you don't say it doesn't mean you don't say it in your heart. I'm not being picky when I let your wife do this. It's for her own good. Marrying into a prestigious family was not a good thing for some women. If she can do it, you won't have any objections?" Marshal Huangfu did not speak. Madame Huangfu nodded. Huang Fuqi suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Oh, there's something I forgot to tell you. That forest visitor is Ruahua." "Forest visitor?" The marshal repeated the name. He felt that it sounded familiar. He suddenly slapped his thigh. "Is it that female scholar who encourages women to oppose men taking concubines all day long?" At the mention of this, the marshal gritted his teeth. Chapter 573. He had heard the name Lin Jinka a lot these days. That woman was the nemesis of men like them. Why should a woman be nice to herself? Why should a woman depend on a man to live? Why should a woman tolerate a man having 3 wives and 4 concubines? Wasn't that what she should do? Why were there so many questions? The point was that many women's emotions had been stirred up by her. Now, it was said that a small number of women had proposed to divorce their husbands. In Yinsheng, women even began to apply for some easy positions. Now there were already literati in Yinsheng daily denouncing that women came to take their jobs and ignored their families. They were putting the cart before the horse. Contrary to the general's reaction, the general's wife's eyes lit up when she heard that Gu Xingyin was Lin Jinka. In some ways, the general's wife really admired Lin Jinka. Some of her views, her style, and her unique views on beauty made the general's wife admire her. If it weren't for the fact that she was no longer young and the general's relationship with her was more familial than romantic, the general's wife would have tried to live alone. If Lin Jinka became her daughter-in-law, the general's wife thought it was a good thing. However, the general asked Huang Fuqi a series of questions that hit the nail on the head. "I read the comments of Lin Jinka in the newspaper. Although they didn't say it explicitly, I think she advocates equality between men and women. If you marry her, it will be very difficult for you to have concubines in the future." Huang Fuqi asked in reply, "She is enough for me. Why do I need so many women?" When mentioning other women, Huang Fu Shaoshuai's face was full of disgust. Huang Fu Shaoshuai was stumped by the question. He had no answer to this question. Which rich and powerful man wouldn't want to have 2 women on his left and right arms and enjoy the blessings of 2 wives? What went wrong with his son when he grew up? Huang Fuqi got up. "If there is no problem, mother, can you go to prepare the betrothal gift for me? 3 days later, I will go to their house to propose marriage in person." The general had never paid attention to his son's private affairs. He only cared about what kind of wife he wanted to marry as long as he liked her. Ever since Madame Huangfu found out that her son had fallen in love with the forest visitor, her previous objection had turned into a mysterious silence. When Huang Fuqi said this, no one objected. That was all they agreed to. Huang Fuqi thought that he could tell her the news tomorrow. Now, she had no reason to reject him, right? 3 days later, the long motorcade arrived at the small courtyard rented by Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin, Mrs. Zhao, and Mrs. Lin come out after hearing the news. They are stunned to see many young men in military uniforms carrying boxes of things into the yard. Gu Xingyin found Huang Fuqi, who was standing at the side. What are you doing? Huang Fuqi replied, betrothal gifts. Gu Xingyi nearly fainted. Wasn't this action too fast? Moreover, how could a bridegroom lead a team to deliver betrothal gifts? Huang Fuqi looked at Lady Zhao and bowed as a junior. Huang Fuqi has already reported this to his parents, and they are very satisfied with Ruohua. These are the betrothal gifts that my mother personally selected. Lady Zhao was already shocked speechless by the Huangfu family's speed. Can I refuse? Gu Xingyin suddenly asked. Huang Fuqi replied, if you accept, I will hold your hand and take you to the car at the wedding. If you refuse, I will tie you to the car at the wedding. Chapter 574. The Huangfu family's actions couldn't be fooled. Even Huang Fuqi's series of actions had been captured on camera. Huangfu Xiao Shui had actually quietly arranged an engagement. Everyone was guessing who the lucky lady was. Half of Gu Xingyin's profile also appeared in the newspaper that day. Although Yan Ruohua had been married to Lu Zijuan for 2 years in the past, she had never left the house. In addition, she was so different from before that no one recognized her. There were only 2 people who recognized the person in the newspaper. One was Lu Zijuan, and the other was Shen Yuanxing. Both of them were shocked, but their shock was different. One was in disbelief, while the other was ecstatic. When Lu Zijuan saw the newspaper, he was eating outside with 2 of his classmates. He had been in a bad mood recently because Yun-Yi had completely ignored him for some reason. She didn't want the jewelry and clothes he bought for her. He couldn't even enter the theater of Yun-Shi's class. The 2 classmates knew about his relationship with Lu Yuni, so they tried to persuade him. Actresses are heartless. Lu Yuni's behavior clearly shows that she's hooked up with a bigger sugar daddy and kicked him away. Lu Zijuan refused to believe this fact. He didn't believe that his Yun-Yi was such a woman. He believed that their love was pure and beautiful. His 2 classmates had no choice but to drink with him to drown their sorrows. Someone happened to be hawking newspapers outside, and one of his classmates bought a copy. Ms. Lin Jinka is going to publish another article today, right? She hasn't removed it yet. What is she going to say today? Lu Zijuan's male classmate was a fan of Lin Jinka. He felt that such an independent, progressive, and thoughtful woman was most in line with the imagination of men like him. Her male classmate even laughed and said that if Ms. Lin Jinka was about his age, he wouldn't mind her divorce and would be willing to pursue her. In a sense, Lu Zijuan also admired Lin Jinka very much. It was just that he never dared to say this because he was the kind of man in her novel who divorced his wife in order to pursue free love. Lu Zijuan didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. He and Yan Ruohua didn't have anything in common. If they were forced to be together, it would only make both of them suffer. Speaking of Yan Ruohua, he thought of the person he saw in front of the theater of Yunxi class. She was sharp-tongued and her eyebrows were flying. She was a completely different person from the Yan Ruohua he knew. He shook his head with a smile. Why was he thinking of her again? At this moment, his classmate who was sitting opposite him and reading the newspaper suddenly said, young Marshal Huangfu is actually getting married? Even the betrothal gifts were given? Does the woman have a photo? I can't see her clearly, but she looks pretty. Lu Zijuan didn't pay much attention to it until a classmate sitting next to him snatched the newspaper. He inadvertently glanced at it. The woman in the picture. He hurriedly snatched the newspaper and looked at the photo in detail. There was no mistake. Although it was only half a side profile, Lu Zijuan was sure that the woman on it was Yan Ruohua. He read the news on the newspaper again. Yan Ruohua was going to marry young Marshal Huangfu? How was this possible? A person like young Marshal Huangfu was from a different world from them. How could he be interested in Yan Ruohua? Zijuan? The 2 classmates watched in bafflement as Lu Zijuan ran out with the newspaper in his hand. Chapter 575. Following the address on the newspaper, Lu Zijuan found Gu Xingyin's small yard. In fact, since the address was exposed in the newspaper, many people wanted to enter this small yard. However, Huang Fuqi had already thought of this. Currently, this small courtyard was guarded by several fully armed soldiers. No one would dare to have any ideas about the people inside. Lu Zijuan couldn't get close at all. As long as he got close, someone would point a gun at him. After guarding for a day, Lu Zijuan felt that there was nothing he couldn't do. He tidied up his clothes and came to the door. Before the guards asked, he said politely, "I'm a friend of the owner of this yard. Can I go in and visit her?" The guard glanced at him and asked, "What's your name? Who are you looking for?" "Lu Zijuan. I'm looking for Yan Ruohua." Hearing that the gigolo was looking for Madame Xiao, the guard looked at him several times and said, "Wait outside. I'll go in and report." How could he be so arrogant? Lu Zijuan was dissatisfied. Soon the guard came out and looked at Lu Zijuan with a strange look. "Madame Xiao said she didn't know you. You're not a newspaper reporter, are you? I've met a lot of people like you in the past 2 days." Lu Zijuan quickly said, "Is Yan Ruohua really going to marry young Marshal Huangfu? I'm really her friend." The guard impatiently drove him away. "I said I didn't know her. Don't block the door here." Lu Zijuan stood aside and didn't know what he was feeling now. Yan Ruohua, who he looked down on and never looked at, was going to become Madame Xiao and the hostess of Yuncheng? Was there anything more ridiculous than this in the world? He felt that he should see Yan Ruohua, but he had no idea why he should see her and what he should do after meeting her. Seeing that it was getting dark, Lu Zijuan turned around and was about to go home. As a result, something fell on his head. He blacked out and didn't know anything. When he woke up again, he found himself in a strange room. The style of the whole room was very simple. A man in a military uniform was sitting at a desk not far away. He looked very familiar. Lu Zijuan got up and saw the person clearly. This glance caused his heart to involuntarily tremble. He recognized this man with a terrifying aura. It was Huangfu Xiaoshui. He thought that he would never cross paths with anyone in his life. Huangfu Qi seemed to have noticed that he was awake. He stopped writing and stood up. As soon as he stood up, Lu Zijuan felt even more pressure. Huangfu Qi was very tall. He looked at Lu Zijuan with a hint of condescension in his eyes. "Mr. Lu, why are you looking for my fiancé?" Sure enough, it was for Yan Ruohua. Lu Zijuan knew that he had never interacted with Huangfu Qi before. Now, the only connection was that his ex-wife was Huangfu Qi's current fiancée. He summoned his courage and looked at Huangfu Qi. The other party's figure was tall and straight, his features were handsome, and his status was even higher. A man who could make all other men feel inferior. Why? That woman, Yan Ruohua, could still find such an outstanding man after leaving him? For some reason, he blurted out, "You're right. Young Marshal Huangfu, did you know that your fiancé was married before?" Chapter 576. As soon as he said this, he regretted it. Since when had he become such a despicable person? Then, a hand squeezed his neck tightly. A strong sense of suffocation surged. Huangfu Qi's cold voice sounded in his ear. "How could she have met a man like you before? Such a woman was actually held back by such a man." Huangfu Qi's heart suddenly spread a fine and dense heartache. If only I had met her earlier, before she got married. In this way, she wouldn't have been treated like that. It didn't matter. In the future, he would be responsible for doubly spoiling her. Seeing that Lu Zijuan's face had begun to turn purple, Huangfu Qi loosened his hand and Lu Zijuan was thrown to the ground. Huangfu Qi seemed to have just encountered something dirty. He took a cloth towel from the desk and carefully wiped his hands. "The person you abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes is the treasure of my life. Lu Zijuan, don't let me see you trying to get close to her again. Otherwise, next time, I won't let go." Lu Zijuan went out of the door in a daze. It was already dark. He didn't go home. Instead, he walked to Yunxi's class. In the past, there were people guarding the door. But today, he didn't know if the gatekeeper happened to be lazy, but no one was guarding the door. Lu Zijuan entered the garden unimpeded. Yes, he still had Yunyi. Yan Ruohua was nothing. He loved Yunyi. As long as Yun-yi was still there, it was fine. However, when he approached Lu Yunyi's room, he heard a gentle and soft voice. Division Commander Zhang, come, drink this cup. This voice was sweet and mellow, like the first cry of a oriole. It was a voice that Lu Zijuan couldn't be more familiar with. A lustful voice sounded, I want you, to feed me personally. The following voice was self-evident. Lu Zijuan only felt a gust of hot air rushing to the door with a bang. This was not his Yun-yi. This couldn't be his Yun-yi. Yes, Yun-yi must be forced. Lu Zijuan didn't know where the impulse came from. He kicked the door heavily. The scene in the room was unbearable to look at. A middle-aged man was lying on the chaise lounge. A few buttons of his military uniform were already unbuttoned. A beauty was lying on top of him. The beauty was holding a wine glass in her hand. The wine in the glass had already been emptied. Half of it was in the belly of the beauty, and the other half was in the belly of the middle-aged man. Wasn't that beauty Lu Yunyi? Her clothes were already in a mess, revealing the bright red undergarment underneath. When she turned her head, there was still a trace of wine at the corner of her mouth. The two of them were obviously startled by the commotion. Division Commander Zhang frowned. A clear look of disgust flashed across Lu Yunyi's eyes. It had long been a tacit rule to only talk about the wind and moon, regardless of. This man was so shameless that she couldn't shake him off. No man would be in a good mood when he was interrupted. Especially when Lu Zijuan was still deceiving himself and others. He said to Lu Yunyi affectionately, Yunyi, you must have been forced, right? Don't be afraid. I'm here to save you. Don't be afraid. Teacher Zhang glanced at the beauty on top of him, old flame. Feeling the anger on the man's body, Lu Yunyi quickly smiled and said, look at what you're saying. What old flame? Maybe he's just a hothead from somewhere. After reading a few scripts, he thinks he's the hero. Lu Zijuan looked at Lu Yunyi in disbelief. It was as if this was the first day he knew this woman. Chapter 577. Did she not remember all the sweet and affectionate vows they had made to each other? He had even promised to marry her. The man who was addressed as Division Commander Zhang laughed when he heard Lu Yunyi's words. He snorted nonchalantly, his voice full of viciousness. Since you don't know him, take him away and beat him up. Someone came in from outside the room and pulled Lu Zijuan, who was standing in a daze, away. Only then did Lu Zijuan react. He said to the people who were pulling him, let go of me, what are you doing? What you're doing is against the law. Division Commander Zhang suddenly stopped his actions and said, I suddenly changed my mind. Don't drag him away. Right here, beat him up. After he finished speaking, he reached out and hooked Lu Yunyi. Lu Yunyi softly fell onto him with a cry. Come, serve me well. Let this little brat see what's good for him. Heavy punches landed on his body. Not far away, he could hear the sounds of the woman he loved having sex with another man. Lu Zijuan felt that at some point, his heart had died just like that. Pfft. He finally could not hold it in and spat out a mouthful of blood. Reporting to Sir, he has fainted, one of the men said. One of the men who attacked Lu Zijuan said. Motherfucker, Lu Zijuan's voice was too seductive. His anger was ignited, and he had nowhere to vent it. He could only vent his energy on Lu Zijuan. His punches and kicks were merciless. Oh, he's not dead, right? Division Commander Zhang's lazy voice came from the curtains, with a hint of satisfaction after sex. That person replied, we know our limits. We won't kill him. Carry him out and throw him far away. Don't let me see him when I go out and ruin my mood. Yes. The door opened and closed. Their footsteps could be heard further and further away. Damn it, it's the middle of the night, and we still have to run errands. A soldier spat on the ground and threw Lu Zijuan on the ground. Thinking about it, he still felt angry. He reached out and kicked Lu Zijuan's leg. Lu Zijuan, who had fainted, could not help but groan from the sudden pain. Forget it, forget it. Let's go. Another person couldn't bear to watch any longer and persuaded. On the evening of the second day, the Lu family finally found Lu Zijuan not far from the city gate. His body was covered in wounds. This scared the hell out of him. It was said that Madame Lu fainted when she saw Lu Zijuan like that. When the doctor came and told her about her situation, old Madame Lu, who had recovered with great difficulty, closed her eyes and fainted. The doctor said that the other areas were only superficial wounds. Although the injuries were serious, they could be healed after a few months of rest. However, the bones in Lu Zijuan's right leg had been broken. Most likely, the doctor didn't say it out loud, but his meaning was very clear. Lu Zijuan's right leg was probably crippled. The Lu family only had one male descendant. This kind of blow was really hard for people to accept. When Lu Zijuan woke up, he still hadn't calmed down when old Madame Lu, who had been keeping watch by the bedside, pulled his hand and cried to the heavens. After a while, he finally reacted to what he had lost. When he realized that his right leg might never recover, Lu Zijuan felt that losing Lu Yuni wasn't as bad as losing Lu Yuni. Chapter 578. Gu Xingyin didn't know what exactly happened that night. She only knew that Lu Zijuan and Lu Yuni had broken up. Lu Zijuan's leg was eventually crippled, just like in the original plot. As she had expected, Lu Zijuan didn't need to do anything at all. Lu Zijuan would suffer a painful price because of his beloved Lu Yuni. He lost a leg and was disillusioned with his beloved. She didn't know which was the most unacceptable for Lu Zijuan. She didn't have much time to pay attention to those two people now because she was about to get married. Yes, Huangfu Shaoshuai's efficiency was indeed extraordinary. What Gu Xingyin was more curious about was how he managed to convince his parents to accept him. Not only the dignitaries of Yuncheng, but also the entire northwest region and even the government in the distant capital sent officials to congratulate Huangfu Shaoshuai's wedding. When the bride came out, it was indeed a strange face. Moreover, except for one person who claimed to be her mother, the only family members of the bride were Mr. and Mrs. Shen of White Cloud Cloth Company. Her surname was Yan, so she was definitely not a member of the Shen family. Judging from the expressions of the marshal and his wife, they were very happy, which meant that they were not dissatisfied with this daughter-in-law. As for the marshal, well, ordinary people didn't have the ability to see anything from Huangfu Shaoshuai's expressionless face. However, they had heard a lot of stories before. It was said that if the marshal didn't agree, even the marshal and his wife couldn't force him to do anything. Come to think of it, this bride should be someone that young Marshal Mu himself likes. Everyone looked at the bride carefully again. At first glance, she was very beautiful. At second glance, she was also very polite and well-educated. In front of so many guests, she didn't show any stage fright. Everyone nodded in their hearts. Even the marshal was very satisfied. This daughter-in-law made him a little speechless in some ways. However, the daughter-in-law of the Huangfu family should have such a demeanor. The point was that she seemed to get along very well with the marshal. Zhao sat at the same table with the marshal and his wife, which was something she had never thought of before. She felt a little uneasy, but more than that, she was worried about her daughter. She looked at the couple without blinking and prayed countless times in her heart that young Marshal Mu would like Ruohua and treat her well. It was enough for her Ruohua to meet a bad guy like Lu Zijuan once. The marshal's wife could see her nervousness. Ever since she found out that Lin Jianke and her daughter-in-law were the same person, her attitude towards her changed drastically. She was also curious about Zhao Shi, who had raised such a daughter. She comforted Zhao Shi, "In-law, you don't have to worry. I know our Tongfeng's temperament the best. If he didn't like Ruohua to the core, he definitely wouldn't casually involve himself in marriage." When she talked about Gu Xingyin, her eyes were filled with love. Zhao Shi was relieved. She didn't know how the young commander would treat Ruohua, but at the very least, it seemed that the commander's wife was satisfied with Ruohua. After a busy day, Gu Xingyin waited for her new husband in the room. She sat alone on the bed in a daze. In so many worlds, in this world, the progress between her and him was the fastest. From meeting, to getting engaged, to getting married. It had been less than 2 months. How did she inexplicably become his wife? Chapter 579. The maid standing by the side thought she was nervous, so she smiled and comforted her. Young madam, you don't have to be nervous. When young Marshal Mu went out, he specifically told me to serve you well. I've been in the Marshal's mansion for several years, and this is the first time I've seen young Marshal Mu care so much about someone. Gu Xingyin came back to her senses and smiled at her. The door suddenly opened. Huang Fuqi, dressed in a military uniform, walked in with a gust of cold wind. The servants in the room tactfully retreated, leaving the room for the newlyweds. Neither of them spoke, and the room was so quiet that they could hear the laughter outside. Gu Xingyin didn't know what to say at this moment. She raised her head and happened to meet Huang Fuqi's burning gaze. He was staring at her without blinking, and there seemed to be a flame rising in the depths of his eyes. Gu Xingyin was no stranger to this kind of gaze. This man was aroused. Huang Fuqi saw her gaze and suddenly turned around to pour 2 cups of wine from the wine pot on the table. He handed 1 cup to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin somewhat understood what he meant, but she didn't say anything. Cross cups of wine, Huang Fuqi said concisely. He reached out and took Gu Xingyin's hand, intertwining their wrists. Gu Xingyin looked at the man's eyes, closed her eyes, and gently poured the wine from the cup into her mouth. Her body was suddenly pulled into an embrace, and the cup in her hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. When her body touched the soft bedding, the last thought in Gu Xingyin's mind was, "This is too fast." Young Marshal Huangfu's characteristic of only doing and not saying anything was vividly displayed. When Gu Xingyin got up the next day, Huang Fuqi helped her put on her clothes. It couldn't be helped. She seemed to have been tormented a little too hard, and she couldn't summon any strength. Huang Fuqi didn't want the maids to see her like this. For the first time in her life, young Marshal Huangfu was willing to serve her. Even so, when Gu Xingyin stepped on the ground, her legs couldn't help but soften, and she was hugged tightly by the man beside her. She unceremoniously glared at him. Huang Fuqi was startled for a moment before a trace of a smile flashed across his eyes. He reached out and lifted Gu Xingyin into his arms. "Put me down quickly. What would happen if someone saw us like this?" Gu Xingyin whispered. "It's okay. I'll put you down when we get downstairs." The marshal and his wife were already sitting in the hall. It was getting late. The marshal's wife was a little worried, but the marshal smiled. "This kid is a newlywed, and he likes her." The marshal's wife glared at him fiercely. "Watch your mouth in front of your daughter-in-law later." The marshal started from scratch. After so many years, he still couldn't get rid of the bandit spirit in his bones. At this moment, some old maids in their 40s or 50s came over and whispered a few words in the marshal's wife's ear. There was a trace of surprise in the marshal's wife's eyes, and then there was a strong joy. "Really? Are you sure?" The old maids nodded affirmatively. "I still have a good eyesight." "Young madam looks like it's her first time." The marshal looked at the two of them muttering and wondered, "What are you talking about? Can't you let me know?" The marshal's wife waved her hand to dismiss them and said a few words to the marshal happily. The marshal was also surprised. The marshal's wife's face was full of undisguised joy. Maybe she and our Tongfeng are destined to be together. Chapter 580. Gu Xingyin was carried all the way here by Huang Fuqi. Fortunately, this man saved her face and put her down before entering the house. Gu Xingyin knew that she was just deceiving herself. They probably hadn't arrived yet. Someone had already informed the other side of the situation. However, it was better than being carried into the house in front of the parents. Otherwise, they would not know how frivolous this daughter-in-law was. She held Huang Fuqi's hand and leaned almost all her important parts on him. The two of them entered the house intimately. Looking at the two of them, a smile of understanding flashed across the marshal's wife's eyes. "Father, mother." Huang Fuqi nodded at the two of them. Gu Xingyin greeted them according to how he addressed them. The marshal responded and fumbled for a small box before handing it to Gu Xingyin. This was a gift for their first meeting. It was a little heavy. Gu Xingyin's first feeling when she took it. The marshal's eyes were a little mischievous. Open it and see if you like the gift that I, as your father-in-law, have chosen for you. Since the marshal said so, Gu Xingyin could only do as he said. She opened the box and instantly understood who Huangfu Qi's character was from. Who would give his daughter-in-law a gun on the first day of her marriage? The marshal's wife obviously did not expect that the gift that her husband had not shown her was this. She could not help but put her hand on her forehead. This was really. Gu Xingyin picked up the gun in the box lightly. This gun was obviously specially made for women. The small and elegant silver appearance looked more like an ornament than a lethal weapon. Gu Xingyin actually liked this kind of gift. She could not help but play with it in her hands. Thank you, father. Looking at the undisguised joy in her eyes, the marshal clapped his hands and laughed. Good. I know that you are the visitor of the forest, so I know that this kind of thing is probably to your liking. Ha ha ha. The marshal's wife looked at him helplessly. She pulled Gu Xingyin over and handed him a small box as well. I won't prepare those weird gifts for you. Inside this box is a set of jewelry that I specially asked someone to make for you from Biyao restaurant. There are also some land deeds and shops. Thank you, mother. Gu Xingyin knew that the couple really approved of her if they could take out these things. Gu Xingyin stayed with the Huangfu family for 3 days. On the first day, other than meeting the general and his wife, he was resting. The next day, he met Marshal Huangfu's group of beautiful concubines and Huangfu Qi's half-sisters from different mothers. The marshal's wife never stopped Marshal Huangfu from taking in concubines, but there was one thing she did not allow those people to live in the Western-style building they lived in. Out of sight, out of mind. All the concubines and young ladies of the Huangfu family lived in another large courtyard nearby. On the third day, Gu Xingyin also rested in her room for a day. The reason was not to be told to outsiders. However, Madame Huangfu was happy to see this. According to this development, she estimated that she would soon be able to hold a grandson. However, her daughter-in-law's body needed to be nourished. On the day of returning home, Madame Zhao got up early. In fact, she had not rested well these days. She had been worried about whether her daughter was living well in the Huangfu family and whether she was not used to it. Until she saw Gu Xingyin. Her daughter's complexion could not lie. Although young Marshal Huangfu's personality was a little cold, he was really considerate to her daughter. When she saw her daughter sit down, Huangfu Qi specially took a cushion for her. Madame Zhao was so happy that flowers bloomed in her heart. Chapter 581. Many people in Yinxing were paying attention to the couple, Gu Xingyin and Huangfu Qi. Soon, Gu Xingyin's identity was dug out by some people with ulterior motives. Young Marshal Huangfu's bride turned out to be a married woman. Many people were dumbfounded at once. Some people who secretly disliked the Huangfu family even bribed some literati to slander the Huangfu family in the newspapers. The general idea was that the dignified Marshal Huangfu had found such a daughter-in-law, which was simply a disgrace. More people were laughing at Gu Xingyin. In other words, they were waiting for the Huangfu family's reaction. The Huangfu family did not disappoint them. The day after the news came out, Marshal Huangfu published a statement in the newspaper, claiming that he and his wife were very satisfied with Yan Ruohua as their daughter-in-law. As for her previous experience, it was a new era now. Why should she stick to the past? If someone maliciously smeared the reputation of the Huangfu family, he would never tolerate it. Huangfu Qi also issued a statement. Compared with his father, he was much simpler and more violent. Whoever dares to speak ill of my wife, I will make him speechless. Before these rumors could spread, they were suppressed by the Huangfu clan with thunderous force. Gu Xingyin also issued a statement, officially announcing her identity as a visitor of the forest. This time, she used her own experience to tell all women that women did not need to live under the oppression of some men. She could live a carefree life alone and even find her own true happiness. She was despised by her ex-husband and divorced decisively. After that, she became one of the owners of the cloth business on her own. Finally, she attracted young Marshal Huangfu with her excellence and became young Marshal Huangfu's wife. This woman's experience was a legend in itself. Many women had gained strength from her. Later generations, historians had analyzed that Yunqing had always been one of the most prosperous cities in the Republic of China for women's rights. A large part of this was due to young Marshal Huangfu's wife. When Yunqing entered the snowy season, there was good news in the marshal's mansion. Young Marshal Huangfu's wife was pregnant. This made young Marshal Huangfu's wife very happy. She was afraid that Gu Xingyin would be bored, so she specially invited Lady Zhao to stay with her daughter every day. Now, Madame Zhao could no longer afford to live in that rented courtyard. Gu Xingyin bought a Western-style building not far from the marshal's fu for her. If she misses her daughter, she can come over at any time. In September of the following year, Gu Xingyin gave birth to a chubby boy. The marshal was so happy that he held a banquet for 3 days outside the marshal's residence. At this time, the weather was already a bit cold. Huang Fuqi walked into the room. Gu Xingyin is not out of confinement yet. The child is carried out by the marshal's wife. The maid in the room sensibly walked out. Huang Fuqi sat by the bed and looked at his wife, who seemed to be in a good mood. "Are you tired?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. She had been lying down like this every day. How could she feel tired? "You don't seem to like Yuan." Gu Xingyin was a little confused. Yuan was the child's nickname. These days, this man rarely held his son. When he saw his son, there was not much joy on his face. Huang Fuqi did not answer, but said, "Let's not have children in the future, okay? One is enough." Gu Xingyin was not obsessed with this and said softly, "It depends on fate." Huang Fuqi gently leaned his head on his wife's chest. He remembered the day when Ruohua gave birth. Basins of blood were brought out and the miserable cries in the room. It was enough to experience such a thing once. He was distressed. Chapter 582. Marshal Huangfu's wife, Yan Ruohua. She was a legendary woman in the modern history of the Republic. She remarried and entered the Huangfu family at that time. When no one thought highly of her, she successfully made everyone in the Huangfu family accept her. Her love with Huang Fuqi also made many young girls who liked romance in later generations cry out in joy. It was simply a modern version of the overbearing young Marshal Huang Fuqi falling in love with me. It was said that Huang Fuqi fell in love with her at first sight. When they met again, he directly took her home. How much did Huang Fuqi dote on his wife? It was said that he had seen the pain of his wife giving birth once. In order not to let his wife feel that pain again, he actually did not have a second child in his life. In his life, he only had one woman, Yan Ruohua. In that era when it was common for men to have multiple wives and concubines, in that era when it was good to have many children. His actions had simply shattered everyone's understanding. How many people could be so affectionate, even 100 years later? Yan Ruohua's legend did not only lie in this. Speaking of this, it was necessary to mention the pen name she had used before, Lin Jinka. In the eyes of all women, Lin Jinka was without a doubt a god. A god in the fashion industry, a god who led women to confidence and freedom. In that era of rigid aesthetics, she created her own unique Yen style and collaborated with Biyao Textiles to create the clothing brand, Yen. It was said that in that era, as long as the Yen brand released a new style of clothing, it would inevitably be crazily fought over by everyone in Yuncheng. Even today, 100 years later, the Yen brand was still an internationally renowned female clothing brand and had a pivotal position in the fashion industry. She was not only a fashion designer, but also the first woman in the modern history of the Republic to call for women to know how to live for themselves. After becoming the wife of the young marshal, she took advantage of her status and established a women's mutual aid committee in Yuncheng. This was also the first organization in the history of the Republic to be established to fight for the interests of women. Later, this committee gradually developed into the Women's Rights Protection Association. The first women's movement in the Republic was launched under her leadership. At that time, scholars did statistics and found that among the 40 cities in the Republic, women in Yuncheng had the highest status among all the cities. Women in Yuncheng also had the highest rate of working outside the home. Yan Ruohua lived to the age of 78. When she left, all the people in Yun City spontaneously followed her coffin around the entire city. That day, not a single shop in Yun City was open for business, and the traffic on the road was paralyzed. Another legendary story was that less than 3 days after Madame Yen Ruohua's death, old Marshal Huang Fuqi, who had always been healthy, called all of his children and grandchildren over. After he finished telling them about his will, he said, "I should go look for her. Otherwise, she won't be happy waiting for me alone." Then, he closed his eyes peacefully. This was just a rumor. Other than old Marshal Huang Fuqi's family, no one could prove its authenticity. However, old Marshal Huang Fuqi's lifelong love for Madame Yen Ruohua was acknowledged by everyone. The story of the Republic of China came to an end. This is the longest story I've ever written. It's actually 40,000 words long. It was also the story that he had written the most stagnant. At his worst, he had only written 1,000 words in 2 hours. Gigi knew that there were a lot of shortcomings in this story, and this kind of theme was a particularly big challenge for me. I'm very happy to be able to bring it to a complete end. Chapter 583. System, I feel that my body is full of power, Gu Xingyin said to the system. She moved her body. This body felt different from the previous world. A familiar power surged in her body. She looked around and found that she was lying in a huge lake. Not far away, there was pure white snow and rolling mountain peaks. She was lying in the unfreezing lake at the top of the mountain. She didn't feel cold at all. Someone is coming. Please pass out in time, the system reminded her. Then, Gu Xingyin's eyes went black. You forced me to pass out. Why are you reminding me to be careful? Not long after Gu Xingyin passed out, a man came to this place. He was wearing a professional mountaineering suit. Obviously, he was a mountaineering enthusiast. The moment he saw Gu Xingyin, the man thought that he was hallucinating. In the crystal-clear lake, there was a girl as beautiful as a fairy lying quietly. She was wearing a white dress of unknown texture. Her eyebrows floated peacefully on the surface of the water. Under the contrast of the surrounding white snow, her whole body seemed to be emitting light. God! The man couldn't care about anything else. He took off his shoes and swam towards the figure in the water. He put his hand to the tip of her nose. Very good, she was still breathing. The man struggled to drag her to the shore. At the moment, he was wet all over and couldn't help but shiver in the cold wind at the top of the mountain. He picked up the signal device in his hand and sent out a signal. Soon, there was the rumbling sound of a helicopter. The man carried Gu Xingyin and boarded the helicopter. Oh my God, Steve! Where did you meet her? She looks like an angel. The man's friend who drove the helicopter to pick up the man said in surprise when he saw Gu Xingyin. Be serious. You are flying a helicopter now, John. John. The man called John shrugged his shoulders to show that he knew. I don't know how she appeared. When I saw her, she was lying in the lake. Steve was also surprised when he said this. John laughed and said, Is she the fairy of this snow mountain? Steve laughed along with him. While Gu Xingyin was unconscious, the system transmitted the storyline of this world to her. Her original body, Angela, was the most beloved angel of God. In this world, people had already lost their faith. Gods and angels had long become things in myths. The passage between the heavenly realm and the human world had long been closed. Angela was originally going to enter a teleportation array in the heaven realm and head to the fourth heaven. Who would have thought that the teleportation array, which had not had any problems for tens of thousands of years, would have a rare accident? Angela drifted in the space-time flow of the heavenly realm for a long time and came to Earth by chance. Her body and soul had been severely injured. Not only had her power been greatly weakened, she had even completely forgotten her previous memories. Just like now, she was picked up by this mountain climbing enthusiast named Steve. The soul of an angel was the purest and most flawless, especially Angela, who had lost all her memories. She completely regarded Steve as her family and relied on and trusted him very much. No man could withstand such a beauty's dependent gaze. Unsurprisingly, Steve fell in love with Angela. However, he had a fiancée, Xiao Anna, whom he had been in love with for 4 years and was planning to get married. Chapter 584. Xiao Anna was a very nice woman. She was gentle, virtuous, and loved Steve very much. In the beginning, she treated Angela very well. She pitied the girl's experience and praised Steve's idea of taking her in. Everything ended when she found out that her husband had feelings for Angela. No woman could accept this kind of thing. Even if Xiao Anna knew that Angela didn't know anything, this matter had nothing to do with her. But sometimes, beauty was the biggest sin. While Steve was out of the house, Joanna sent Angela on a train to a faraway city. It was not that she didn't feel guilty, but she was not confident that she could keep her fiancé's heart in front of such a beautiful girl. She thought that a beautiful girl like Angela would live a good life no matter where she was. But things were not as simple as Xiao Anna thought. When Angela was targeted by a few gangsters and wanted to take advantage of her, her body instinctively activated its defense. Although it solved the small problem temporarily, it caused bigger problems later. Angela was being targeted by some organizations. They did all kinds of inhumane experiments on her body, especially when they found that the girl's body contained infinite power, and no matter how serious the wounds were, they could heal automatically. Everything became even more deranged. In the end, when Angela's life was in danger, the power of the seal was finally activated. The holy angel's 6 wings stretched out from her back, and the whole laboratory and all the people were turned into ashes. But she herself, because she used more power than she could bear when her body was injured, she fell into an eternal sleep. So my mission? Gu Shengyin was confused. Let Angela live a good life, avoid those things, and finally return to the heavenly state. The system directly told her the requirements. Gu Shengyin nodded. With Angela's strength and the fact that he was now in her body, it was not difficult for her to live a good life. But it might be troublesome to return to the heavenly state. In the original plot, Angela didn't find a way to go back until she fell into a deep sleep. She estimated the time, and when she opened her eyes, she found herself lying on a clean and soft bed. Xiao Anna pushed the door open and came in. Although she had seen Gu Shengyin sleeping, when Xiao Anna saw the blue eyes looking at her, she couldn't help but feel a little scared. My God, she is just too beautiful. You're awake? Xiao Anna asked. Gu Shengyin nodded, and looked at Xiao Anna with curiosity. Angels were very sensitive to good and evil, and Xiao Anna's kindness to her now. Gu Shengyin didn't like Xiao Anna, but she also didn't hate her. Xiao Anna was kind, but she didn't mean that she was not a threat to Xiao Anna. To be honest, in the original plot, Joanna didn't know what would happen to a beautiful girl like Angela who didn't know anything and what would happen to her outside. Xiao Anna only pretended that she didn't know and comforted herself that Angela would live a better life. But it didn't matter, Gu Shengyin didn't plan to stay here for long. Chapter 585. Xiao Anna felt that she could not hold her gaze anymore. How could she be so cute? Xiao Anna introduced herself. Hello, I am Xiao Anna. My fiancé, Steve, met you when we were climbing a mountain. Are you in any trouble? Gu Shengyin frowned without thinking. After a long time, she answered, Angela. Angela, which meant angel. Many parents would give their daughters such a name, but Xiao Anna felt that no one was more suitable than the girl in front of her. At this time, Stephen came in. Like Xiao Anna, he was shocked by Angela's beauty. However, Gu Shengyin was not the real Angela. She did not want to have anything to do with Stephen, so she did not show her love and dependence on him like in the original plot. Gu Shengyin stayed at Steve's house for half a month. She studied her body thoroughly. Angela's power was obviously great, but she was seriously injured on the way to the human world. Now her body could not bear the powerful power of the 6-winged angel. Her body automatically sealed most of the power to protect itself. It was worth mentioning that after Gu Shengyin came to this world, she randomly drew a power from the previous world. The result made her speechless. It was the power of the blood race. Angela's body was made of the purest light elements. The dark power of the blood race could not merge with this body at all. System, can't you let me choose? Gu Shengyin complained. The system answered honestly, no, I can't. Host. The system said that it was a good system and would not compromise on some matters of principle. 3 days later, Angela said goodbye to Stephen and Xiao Anna. You don't remember what happened in the past, do you? Is it safe? Xiao Anna was a little worried. Gu Shengyin smiled innocently. I have a feeling that I should go to the market. Stephen also tried to persuade her to stay, but they could not resist Gu Shengyin's insistence. Xiao Anna had prepared a lot of things for Gu Shengyin, including a change of clothes, an identity certificate that they had found a way to get for her, and some food. In the end, Joanna stuffed a lot of cash into the bag. Gu Shengyin did not refuse. She knew that she might be able to use it. Before leaving, Gu Shengyin gave Steve and Joanna a white necklace each. The necklace was very exquisite. The pendant was a small white feather that seemed to glow under the sunlight. Xiao Anna fell in love with him at first sight. This can bring you good luck. You must wear it with you, Gu Shengyin said with a serious face. A protective necklace made from the feathers of a 6-winged angel was a priceless treasure. Xiao Anna didn't take his words seriously, but she liked this delicate little thing very much. Just like what Gu Shengyin said, she always wore it with her. Until one day, during a trip, the car they were on had a serial car accident. Half of the tourists in the car died on the spot, and the other half suffered different degrees of injuries. Only the two of them, Quan Su and Quan Wei, were unharmed. It was impossible for them to be in such a position. Xiao Anna, who was still in shock, suddenly remembered what Gu Shengyin had said to her. The couple never took off the necklace again. Chapter 586. Gu Shengyin boarded the train to the city under the gaze of Steve and Joanna. In fact, she didn't know why she had to go to the city, but the system reminded her to do so. She asked why, and the system replied, you have to go anyway. The system didn't say anything else. Gu Shengyin attracted a lot of attention. Some people were even secretly discussing whether this girl was a star somewhere. But if such a beautiful star debuted, it was impossible that no one would know about her. Some people even secretly took photos of Gu Shengyin sitting quietly beside the bed on the train. The sun shone through the glass window mischievously on her face. Under the sun, her face looked like a white jade carving. Any random photo was more shocking than those carefully edited photos of stars. A post went viral on the internet. It was a very simple post. Today on the train, I felt like I met an angel. Below was a photo. It was the photo of Gu Shengyin with her eyes half closed and the sun shining on her body. It was only a side view, but it was enough to show her breathtaking beauty. In just over an hour, the post was reposted countless times. Many people expressed their disbelief. This photo had definitely been polished and polished. If you have the ability, post the original photo. The person who posted the post was unhappy. I posted the original photo, but you don't believe me. She walked up to Gu Shengyin and politely asked her if she could take a few photos of her and post them on the internet. After all, it was okay that she had just posted a side view. If she wanted to post a picture of her face, she had to get Gu Shengyin's permission. Gu Shengyin raised her head and looked at her curiously. When she knew the purpose of her visit, she showed a slightly shy smile and nodded gently. The woman couldn't help but cover her chest when she saw the smile. God, why did a girl of the same gender make her heart beat faster and she couldn't breathe? The last time she felt like this was when she saw her idol for many years. No, the feeling wasn't even this strong back then. She returned to her seat absent-mindedly. She thought in despair, could it be that she was actually gay? It was not only this woman who was shocked by Gu Shengyin's smile. When Gu Shengyin revealed that smile, the entire carriage became quiet weirdly. Then, those who were waiting for a follow-up discovered that the person who had sent the original message had sent several more messages. You're saying that this is a photo that has been edited? Now, I'll show you the one I just took. Oh, my phone is the super popular model. Below were pictures, pictures, pictures. It was obvious that the photos were taken with a low-resolution phone. They could still see the scenery outside the car window. One of the photos even showed the foot of the passenger behind Gu Xingyin. The only thing that didn't change was Gu Xingyin's face, which was so beautiful that it didn't belong to this world. The onlookers went crazy, and this news was pushed to the front page in a short time. Some people even asked her which train she was on and asked her to go and watch. Gu Xingyin was so angry that he was caught off guard. In a distant city, in a 100-story building, a handsome man in a black suit was reading the news. No matter what price it takes, we must sign her to our company. Chapter 587. At the last stop, Gu Xingyin got off the train. This was a completely unfamiliar place to her. Many people were already looking at her. Some of them had already recognized her as the girl in the handwritten letter and were whispering excitedly. "Hello, beautiful lady." A middle-aged man in a black suit walked quickly to her side. "I'm Thomas from Kenna Pictures." He handed a business card to Gu Xingyin. "Are you interested in becoming an artist under our company?" Gu Xingyin was investigating Kenna Pictures. The results came out quickly. It was one of the largest film and television companies in the world and had an important position in the film industry. Thomas looked at the girl who remained silent and thought that she was wary of him. He took out his phone and tapped on it a few times. Then, he showed Gu Xingyin a page. "The person on this page is me. You don't have to worry that I'm a bad person." Then, he said considerately, "Or, if you feel hesitant, you can ask your guardian for help." This girl looks so young. She shouldn't be 18 years old yet, Thomas thought. When he said this, he was full of confidence. Ordinary people couldn't refuse an invitation from Kenna Pictures. "No need." Gu Xingyin finally said, "I don't have a guardian. I can make my own decisions." Her voice was clear and gentle. When she spoke, it was like singing a hymn. Thomas's mind went blank for a moment. In his mind, he started to think about the development path for this girl. "That's great," Thomas said. "What do you mean?" Gu Xingyin tilted her head and winked mischievously. "I want to know what kind of conditions you will give me." Thomas was shocked by this cute tilting head and covered his heart. Oh my God. After he said that, he didn't feel awkward at all. "If you don't mind, we can talk about it at our headquarters." Gu Xingyin got into Thomas's car. As soon as the car left, someone rushed over. How did Kenna's men move so quickly? Damn it. A sexy woman with an enchanting figure and red lips had a very bad expression on her face. She was from Byte Film. When she saw this girl's news on the internet, she saw countless business opportunities. She knew that this would be a huge money tree. But with that face, even if she didn't have any talent or acting skills, she could still move freely in this industry. It was a pity that she was one step behind them. The woman with red lips cursed, got in the car and left. Gu Xingyin accepted the invitation of this man called Thomas because when she was on the train, she suddenly felt a very subtle energy being transmitted into her body. The energy came from the woman who had uploaded her picture to the internet, the other passengers in the car, and the people who liked her on the internet. The amount of energy each person could give her was very small, but Gu Xingyin could clearly feel that the small, weak energy was slowly healing the serious injuries in her body. These were brought to her by those who liked her. But for her injuries, these energy were just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. But what if the number of people became very large? But Gu Xingyin, who had been a movie queen in the entertainment industry, knew that a popular star would have a very scary fan club. Chapter 588. The amount of energy that each person could give her might not be much. 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, it might not be much either. But what if there were 10,000 people? What if there were 100,000 people? What if there were 1,000,000, 10 million, or even 100 million people? Gu Xingyin's mission was to make sure that Angela had a good life. Then, healing the injuries on this body and recovering her strength was also one of the missions. Gu Xingyin told the system about her conjecture. The system's reply confirmed her conjecture. Originally, the power of faith was the best energy for an angel. But now that the world had lost its gods and people no longer had faith, they could only use another method. Everyone knew that humans loved their idols crazily. This kind of love, in essence, was somewhat similar to the power of faith. It was just that this kind of love could not be compared to the purity of the power of faith. The effect of this kind of love was also very different from the power of faith. But this was already very good. At least Gu Xingyin saw a hope of recovering from her injuries. Say, if the identity of an angel was announced, the humans would gather their faith again? How was that possible? Gu Xingyin did not need to think to know that if she really did that, what awaited her would not be the power of faith, but some government or non-government organization that would detain and research her. Just like Angela in the original storyline. Along the way, Gu Xingyin was communicating with the system, so she did not say anything. Thomas, who was always very talkative, did not know why he was sitting beside her. At this time, it should be the best time to get closer to her. But when he saw this girl sitting there quietly without doing anything, he had an inexplicable feeling that he did not dare to disturb her. It was as if he would be committing an unforgivable crime if he disturbed her. Gu Xingyin knew why. Angela was a six-winged angel, even if she did not show her wings and retracted her holy light. But there was no way to completely retract the holy aura that belonged to a high-grade angel. Even if only a little was leaked, it was enough to make any mortal not dare to blaspheme. Of course, she couldn't tell Thomas about this, but Thomas had already found the reason by himself. Some of the top celebrities had their own unique aura. Sometimes, when you looked at a group photo, you would know that even though it was a group photo of two people, sometimes you would completely ignore the other person. This was the power of the aura. However, the aura of those celebrities was mostly formed through constant experience or after they had been famous for a long time. Could it be that this girl was born with such an aura? Thomas felt that he had really picked up a treasure. "We are here, Miss Angela." Thomas got out of the car first and opened the door for Gu Xingyin. After half an hour, Thomas learned Gu Xingyin's name. Kenna Pictures was located in the busiest commercial center of York City. Companies that could own an independent office building here were all existences with great influence in the world. Gu Xingyin raised his head to take a look before following Thomas into the company. Along the way, many fashionably dressed people greeted Thomas with smiles on their faces. If an ordinary person was here, he or she would have screamed out loud. This was because these people were all people who could be seen on the big screen often. Chapter 589. Thomas was not as enthusiastic as when he was with Gu Xingyin. He was indifferent to most people. He would only smile when he was with a few people. These people were all big shots in the film industry or rising stars. They looked curiously at Gu Xingyin, who was brought in by Thomas. At first glance, they felt a great sense of danger, especially the female stars. This girl was too beautiful. She was a woman who could make any woman feel threatened. Especially in the film industry, where the first thing to look at was the face. No wonder Thomas brought her here personally. No matter what those stars thought, they still gave Gu Xingyin a friendly smile on the surface. With her looks and Thomas's attitude, if this girl didn't court death by herself or really couldn't be helped, her future development wouldn't be too bad. It was good to form a good relationship with her in advance. Thomas brought Gu Xingyin to the 88th floor. This floor was the office of the company's senior management. There were already people waiting for them there. Thomas glanced around. Other than the company's director, even the general manager, who rarely appeared, was here. Other than that, there were also a few top managers. They were sitting here to see how beautiful this girl, who was known as an angel, was. The moment Gu Xingyin entered the office, they all held their breaths. After that, Kate, the top manager of Kenna Pictures, recalled, "When I saw Angela for the first time, I felt that the narrow office was suddenly lit up." She had said more than once that her biggest regret in life was not being able to be Angela's manager. An artist like her could bring a manager to the top of the world. Originally, the company had received orders from the big boss to sign this girl at all costs. Initially, these people still had some complaints in their hearts. That boss didn't know much about the entertainment industry, so he should at least let them take a look first, right? However, the moment they saw this girl named Angela, they understood what their boss was thinking. For such a girl, if Kenna's action was a little slower, there would be other companies that couldn't wait to throw out all kinds of generous conditions to beg her to sign a contract. Everything went smoothly. Even Gu Xingyin didn't expect that the company would be willing to give her such good conditions. If it wasn't for the system's confirmation that these documents and contracts were all real and had legal effect, anyone else would have suspected that this was a trap that Kenna had dug for them. Then, she chose her manager. Usually, the company would directly assign managers to artists. The big managers could even choose their own artists. When it came to Gu Xingyin, all of Kenna's top managers were there for her to choose from. This time, Thomas enjoyed the advantage of being close to her. Gu Xingyin looked at all the managers and chose him, who she was most familiar with, without hesitation. The others gritted their teeth in anger. They secretly hated themselves for not being willing to lower themselves to pick up an unknown girl after the company had issued that order. Now that they thought about it, they had missed a big money tree. Of course, they just felt a little regretful. Not long after, they beat their chests and stamped their feet. Chapter 590. Thomas was an all-round agent. That night, he brought Gu Xingyin to an exquisitely decorated high-class apartment. "This is the apartment the company gave you. This is your personal assistant Wella." Wella was a girl with some freckles on her face. She was around 20 years old and had a very bright smile. "Rest well today. Tomorrow I will come here to discuss with you your future position and your future schedule." Since it was already night time, Thomas didn't want to stay any longer. He left after saying this. "Wow. Miss Angela, this is the company's arrangement for an A-list artist." Wella looked at Gu Xingyin excitedly. If you looked closely, you could see a trace of envy in her eyes. This Miss Angela didn't even look 20 years old. She had such a high starting point. The artists in the company, which one of them didn't debut many years ago and fight to get to where they were now? Gu Xingyin looked at her and smiled without saying anything. This Wella, to be sent by Kenna to be her personal assistant, she couldn't be as simple as she looked. "You can call me Angela in the future. I hope we can work together happily." Gu Xingyin reached out her hand. Wella was dazed by this smile for a moment. She only reacted after Gu Xingyin called her and held Gu Xingyin's hand with a red face. God, even a girl like her couldn't control herself when facing Miss Angela's smile. She could imagine how passionate those male fans would be in the future. Wella thought in her heart. The next morning at 8, Thomas knocked on the apartment door on time. He originally thought that Gu Xingyin would still be resting. At this age, which young person didn't like to sleep in? But when he entered the door, he saw Gu Xingyin sitting on the sofa with a book in her hand. She smiled and said good morning to him. This girl, any action was enough to make her look like a painting. Thomas sighed in his heart and looked forward to the future. He and Gu Xingyin went to the study and began to talk about his ideas with her. "The company wants you to take the high-end route." "That's what I think too." This was decided by Angela's appearance and temperament. With her current appearance, even if she was wearing coarse clothes, no one would think that she was just an extra. What kind of family and parents could raise a girl like Angela? Of course, Kenna had investigated the identities of his artists. However, what puzzled them was that Angela was saved by a famous outdoor adventurer in a snowy mountain and lived in that small city for a period of time. He couldn't find any more information about Angela. It was as if she had appeared in the mountain out of thin air. Angela herself had no memories of her past. Kenna Company couldn't find anything, so they simply arranged a flawless false identity for Gu Xingyin so that she wouldn't be criticized because of her identity after she became famous. The two of them chatted until noon. Thomas was very satisfied with Gu Xingyin. Although this girl had some advantages that ordinary people couldn't compare to, she wasn't arrogant at all. Gu Xingyin was also very satisfied with Thomas. She used to be Yuan Kui, so she naturally knew how important an excellent manager was to an artist. Wella knocked on the door outside the room and the two of them reacted. Wella's skills are famous, Thomas said with a smile.